When Long Chen's words rang out, Hu Xiaolin's expression sank and everyone's heart shook. It seemed his words were true. Hu Xiaolin felt a burning sensation on his face. In their underground battle, he had been unable to suppress Long Chen and had been kicked in the chin, resulting in him flying out. Although he had immediately circulated his heavenly Dao energy to heal the injury, he hadn't had time to cover the bloodstains. With everyone staring at him, he knew he had been exposed. How could the power of the Xian beasts be something you humans could possibly reach? Don't make me laugh to death. Since you're so arrogant, I'll let you experience a kind of power that a human could never reach even if they cultivated for 1,000 years. The human race isn't even fit to carry the Xian beast race's shoes. Hu Xiaolin roared, and the indistinct figure within his manifestations suddenly began to move. A majestic energy surged out of him. Hu Xiaolin's manifestation grew from 3,000 meters to 30,000 meters in an instant. The figure within it swelled as well, and the rune on Hu Xiaolin's forehead grew brighter until it lit up the sky. As his manifestation grew, his heavenly Dao energy began to boil like oil in a pot. The indistinct figure within his manifestation was still unclear, but based on its outline, it was clearly a dark tiger. Hu Xiaolin's body became covered by black fur, and 2 huge fangs grew out of his mouth. His hands transformed into sharp claws. Hu Xiaolin was in a half-man, half-beast form now. With the support of his manifestation behind him, his aura was exceptionally horrifying. That was just a warm-up. The real battle starts now, so don't be so pleased. Even Hu Xiaolin's eyes had turned dark red, and his voice sounded like metal clashing. Suddenly, Hu Xiaolin shot at Long Chen with incredible speed. People were only able to catch a black light fly out before he arrived in front of Long Chen, a sharp claw slicing toward Long Chen. Long Chen was immediately blown many miles back. One of his sleeves was torn off, revealing some streaks of blood on his arm. How could a weak little human understand just how strong the Xian beasts are? Just now, I was only using 30% of my power. Did you think you were strong? What a joke. Just 50% of my power is enough to crush you, sneered Hu Xiaolin upon sending Long Chen flying. His bloodthirsty air made others shiver. People could sense some kind of energy surging through the huge tiger image within his manifestation and into his body. He truly did appear to be a god amongst beasts. The only thing that was hard for them to accept was his irritating mouth. He kept insulting the human race. He was cursing everyone here except the Xian beasts and ancient races. It was unknown whether he was simply not paying attention or just did not care. Having insulted the human race continuously with his words, even Yan Weishan and Jin Mingwei's expressions were cold. The Dragonblood warriors simply watched calmly. They didn't show much emotion, because they understood Long Chen too well. Why do your words sound so funny? You were using 30% of your power? Then do you believe me when I say I was only using 10% of mine? Asked Long Chen lightly. Then let's see if your mouth is tougher than my fist, sneered Hu Xiaolin. The black image within his manifestation shook, and the sky darkened. A claw slammed toward Long Chen. Hu Xiaolin had activated one of the Xian beast's divine abilities, and both his power and speed had sharply increased. People were barely able to track his movements and could only see a black figure charging at Long Chen. In that instant, they felt all the heavenly Dao energy in the world was sucked dry by Hu Xiaolin. In the face of Hu Xiaolin's shocking attack, Long Chen merely smiled coldly. Yet again, since you insist on holding back, I'll have to take the initiative. Divine Ring. Boom. Long Chen smashed his fist at Hu Xiaolin's claw. The sound of bones breaking rang out along with a pained grunt. Hu Xiaolin coughed up a mouthful of blood and smashed into the ground. What? Everyone was shocked. Looking up at the sky, they saw a 30,000-meter divine ring flowing with 5 colors. As the 5-colored divine ring circulated, heaven and earth changed color, and an undefeatable will filled the world. This time, the azure color that represented the divine gate star was no longer faint. It was fully illuminated. The 5-colored divine star had finally reached its complete state. Even the Dragonblood warriors who were familiar with Long Chen were surprised by this divine ring. It was no longer the same as before. An image had appeared within the divine ring. It was a very simple 5-point star. This was something that had never appeared before. The light of the 5-point star and the divine ring illuminated Long Chen. He appeared both domineering and mysterious. Long Chen suddenly vanished, reappearing right in front of Xiaolin. How fast! People had yet to recover from their shock when they were given another surprise. Without waiting for Xiaolin to recover from the previous blow, Long Chen struck him with his fist. A huge hole was blown in the ground. Xiaolin's arms had tried to block, but Long Chen's fist had struck him in the chest. Blood spurted out of Xiaolin's mouth. I believe you when you said you were only using 30% of your power. Now, do you believe me when I say I was only using 10%? Sneered Long Chen. He sent a kick at Xiaolin's head, the same move that Xiaolin had tried to use against Long Chen. Bastard, you're courting death, roared Xiaolin. His whole body began to shine, and black runes formed a ball around his fist as he met Long Chen's kick. Boom! The ball of runes exploded. Long Chen was knocked back, but Xiaolin was smashed even deeper into the ground. Lightning wings appeared on Long Chen's back, and he forcibly changed direction, charging back at Xiaolin. The ground exploded as they clashed once more. Suddenly, Xiaolin coughed up blood, and runes lit up on his claws. 4 streaks of divine light shot toward Long Chen. They were too close, and this attack was too sudden. Hence, Long Chen couldn't dodge even if he wanted to. Startled cries rang out as this turn of events caught everyone off guard. Just now, Long Chen had taken the absolute advantage, but was he about to be killed in the blink of an eye now? These 4 streaks of divine light were one of the Xian beast's secret arts. Once they pierce someone's head, their Yuan spirit would be destroyed. However, at this moment, Long Chen's Yuan spirit appeared out of his head and sent a punch at the 4 streaks of divine light. What? A Yuan spirit attack? Seeing Long Chen's Yuan spirit appear, everyone's jaws dropped. The Empyreans were especially shocked. Only Empyreans could condense powerful enough Yuan spirits to help form hand seals for their main body to activate magical arts. However, even their Yuan spirits were very weak compared to their true bodies. They couldn't be used to block attacks, as that was no different from suicide. Bang! Boom! 2 sounds rang out at almost the same time. The punch of Long Chen's Yuan spirit shattered those 4 streaks of divine light, and it wasn't harmed at all. At the same time, Long Chen's foot struck Xiaolin's chin, and Xiaolin's jaw exploded. With a pained grunt, he flew back. Boss is mighty! Guoran led the pack with his cheering, and the Dragonblood warriors also cheered. After summoning his divine ring, each of Long Chen's attacks became sharper and fiercer. Xiaolin was injured repeatedly and forced back. It was definitely satisfying to see. Xiaolin might be an overbearing bully and wildly arrogant, but he was qualified to be arrogant. However, while he was qualified to be arrogant in front of others, he was not qualified in front of Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen beating him, the Dragonblood warriors were incomparably refreshed. Xiaolin flew back, his jaw broken. Although blood splattered his whole body, his heavenly Tao energy circulated and healed his injuries in an instant. With a furious roar, his claws sliced through space. Darkwing Wild Claw. Xiaolin's claws caused the air around him to turn muddled. He vanished from everyone's sight. Heavens, what kind of move is that? Where'd he go? Xiaolin had slashed out hundreds of times just now, seeming to slice off layers of space and block off their vision of both Xiaolin and Long Chen. Within that chaotic space, continuous explosive sounds rang out. However, people were unable to see what was going on. Boom! Finally, a large figure flew out and the chaotic space vanished, revealing Long Chen's slightly bloody figure. Long Chen's figure had just appeared when he charged at Xiaolin once more, not giving the latter any breathing room. Xiaolin appeared even more wretched than before. His shoulder had exploded into a pulp of flesh. It was unknown what kind of attack he had suffered. Long Chen's kick met Xiaolin's punch. After blowing Xiaolin's fist back, Long Chen took one step forward and arrived right in front of Xiaolin. Grabbing Xiaolin's hair, Long Chen's kneecap smashed into his face that was 3 times larger than an ordinary person's buttocks. Hu Xiaolin was a giant, and his arms were very long. Now that Long Chen was this close, he panicked, not knowing how he was supposed to fight like this. That was because he had never had a real fight against a human. Normally, this move of Long Chen's would strike his opponent's nose, but Hu Xiaolin's head was just too big, and Long Chen couldn't pinpoint the nose correctly. As a result, Long Chen's knee struck his eye socket. The sound of bones breaking caused everyone to wince. Blood spurted from Hu Xiaolin's head. Hu Xiaolin let out a wild roar, and Long Chen was suddenly blown back by an irresistible power. A berserk aura surged. The sky became dark as a giant figure appeared. He's returned to his true body. Startled cries rang out. Hu Xiaolin had finally abandoned his human form and returned to his original form. His huge body completely blocked the sun. A berserk-killing intent made everyone shiver. He was a giant tiger with a pair of black wings. With each flap of his wings, the sky shuddered. The tiger's entire body was black and a bit lustrous. Its huge fangs gave off a chillingly sharp light, and his huge eyes possessed boundless killing intent as he glared at Long Chen. One of his eye sockets was still bleeding, as that was the injury Long Chen had just caused. After taking the true form of the Darkwing Devil Tiger, Hu Xiaolin suddenly slammed a huge claw at Long Chen. What shocked people was that despite him having a body tens of thousands of meters long, his speed was still fast. They practically couldn't even see his movements. A claw as large as a mountain smashed toward Long Chen. Long Chen didn't even have a chance to dodge and was struck head-on. The ground exploded and astral winds spread. The entire world rocked because of this one attack. What terrifying power, what terrifying speed. Spiderweb cracks had covered the land, as if the entire world was about to crumble. That power had surpassed their understanding. I've heard rumors that the Xian beasts transform into their human form in order to sense the heavenly Daos, merge their divine abilities with the heavenly Daos, and create their foundation for ascension. However, their human form also limits their power. Only once they returned to their true forms can they unleash their full power. When Hu Xiaolin said that he was using only 50% of his power, it seems he wasn't lying, said the Empyrean from the neutral camp. Although he was also an Empyrean, now he found out just how lacking he was compared to Hu Xiaolin. The power that Hu Xiaolin had revealed before wasn't something he could defeat, but at least he'd be able to flee. However, now Hu Xiaolin was as quick as lightning, and thus he'd definitely die before getting away. His only option would be to patiently wait for his death. In front of Hu Xiaolin, Long Chen appeared to be an ant that could be crushed with a single blow. Even the Dragonblood warriors jumped in shock. The power of just a physical body couldn't possibly block such a terrifying attack. "Don't worry, boss is definitely fine," said Guoran. He was the one most confident in Long Chen. Boom. The ground exploded, and a pillar of green light lit up the sky. The claw that Hu Xiaolin had slammed into the ground suddenly shot back, and his huge body was sent flying. Everyone looked toward the green pillar of light in shock. They saw Long Chen slowly floating out of the ground. His divine ring with the 5-point star still illuminated his body, but now his body was covered in green scales. When the light of the 5-point star landed on his green scales, they emitted a brilliant green light, making him appear even more godlike. What the fuck? Why can't I look like that? Guoran couldn't help feeling envious. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan'er all smiled. In this world, there was no one more reliable than Long Chen. Being with Long Chen always made them feel safe. With the dragon scales covering his body, Long Chen emitted a noble, holy aura. He emitted a will that shook the 9 heavens and subdued the 4 seas. Long Chen had summoned the green dragon battle armor. However, this time, with the 5-point star illuminating him, his true dragon essence blood was fully activated. That majestic aura was released automatically. To humans, this aura only felt grand and vast. To the ancient races, it felt like a stone was pressing against their hearts. In front of that pressure, they found it hard to breathe. However, the ones who had it the worst were the Xian beasts. They were all pale with terror. Their souls were shuddering. This is dragon might. How could a human possess dragon might? cried out a Xian beast expert. Tigers were sometimes called the kings of 100 beasts. Those beasts referred to regular beasts. Dragons were the emperor of all beasts. These beasts were not just ordinary beasts but also divine beasts. Dragons were supreme existences. Any beast would feel suppressed by its pressure. Although Long Chen possessed true dragon essence blood, he had never learned how to activate the dragon might. It was only now that his 5 stars had reached their complete state that the illumination of the 5-point star fully activated the dragon might hidden in his blood. The Xian beasts were extremely sensitive to this dragon might. Others might not feel much, but these experts from the Darkwing Devil Tiger race were all trembling. This was something they couldn't control. Standing up in the air, with waves of divine green light flowing around him, Long Chen said, "Nothing in this world is impossible. That's why whether you're a man or a beast, you need to have respect in your heart. However, the lot of you decided to frame me and ruin my reputation for your selfish desires. I don't particularly care about that, as I can laugh something like that off. However, you shouldn't have touched my reverse scale. If you wanted to target me, you should have come at me instead of reaching your despicable hands toward my companions and tormenting them. Don't blame me for being vicious." Thinking of Cloud's miserable state, Long Chen's fury suddenly soared. He pounced at Xiaolin. A huge flame blade slashed through the air at Xiaolin. Xiaolin's huge wings slammed forward at Long Chen's flame blade. Blinding runes exploded through the air. Xiaolin let out a furious roar as he was blown back by Long Chen's flame blade. His black wings were now ablaze with golden flames. Black chi surged out of the wings, slowly erasing the flames. All this time, Hua Long had continuously absorbed the divine flame crystals. Its power had grown to the point that it practically matched a fully matured earth flame. Its flame energy was something that frightened even the Empyreans. If they were touched by it, they would need a huge amount of heavenly Tao energy to erase the flames. Each slash of Long Chen's blade forced Xiaolin back. Under Long Chen's dragon might, Xiaolin was unable to display his full power. Only the Xian beasts understood that logic, while the ancient races were able to see some clues. However, the humans were unable to see that Xiaolin was being suppressed by Long Chen's dragon might. All they saw was Long Chen's scales shining while Xiaolin was repeatedly forced back. He's completely suppressed. Long Chen's actually suppressed Xiaolin. He doesn't even have any heavenly Tao fluctuations. He can't be an Empyrean. A monster. That's the only way to describe Long Chen. A terrifying monster. The neutral camp's experts couldn't help muttering amongst themselves as they saw Long Chen force back the giant black beast. Golden flames filled the sky. Xiaolin was only able to stay alive in the sea of flames. He wasn't able to retaliate at all. Xiaolin's power is suppressed by Long Chen's dragon might. He can't use his abilities. "We're going out as well," said Yan Weishan to the Corrupt Path's Jin Mingwei. Long Chen's power had far surpassed their expectations. Now wasn't the time to mock Xiaolin. If Long Chen really did defeat the Xian beasts while they just stood and watched, that would offend the whole Xian beast races. Although Xiaolin's mouth was very dislikable, they all knew that the Xian beasts were very protective of their members and also overbearing. They had to go help him now. After all his bragging, I actually thought he had some ability. With the dragon might, this tiger has turned into a cat, sneered Bloodkill one. Yan Weishan frowned. I called you over to give face to you. If you don't want to fight, I'll do it myself. Bloodkill one's expression was calm, but a bit of anger had appeared in his eyes. However, Yan Weishan and Jin Mingwei ignored him. They vanished from their original locations. Long Chen was in the midst of fighting Xiaolin when he suddenly sensed danger. His flame blade slashed behind him. Boom! Flames exploded. A flame spear had appeared in the air, shocking Long Chen. This flame spear was actually able to block his flame blade. Suddenly, the flames exploded, and a blood-colored hand reached out toward Long Chen. The blood-colored hand appeared out of nowhere, but as soon as it did, an evil air filled the air. The wails of millions of ghosts could be heard. The large hand blocked the sun, and a cold killing intent locked onto Long Chen. Long Chen was startled by Jin Mingwei's attack. The cries of the ghosts were actually a spiritual attack that caused him to feel like space was thrown into chaos. A lightning blade immediately appeared in Long Chen's left hand, and he slashed it at the blood-colored hand. Boom! The hand was cut in two. Blood qi filled the air, emitting a nauseating scent. As Long Chen cut apart the hand, it revealed Jin Mingwei's sinister face. He had a bloodthirsty smile on his face as he smashed his fist at Long Chen. Jin Mingwei's manifestation had appeared behind him. His manifestation was also not just a mass of primal chaos. Instead, it was scarlet like blood. Various terrifying life forms seemed to rise and fall within his manifestation. Blood runes revolved around his fist. There was also blood-colored armor on his arm. Long Chen hastily blocked it with his own fist, but he was blown back. What shocked Long Chen was that Jin Mingwei's power was extremely strange. With the support of his manifestation, he wasn't any weaker than Xiaolin. Long Chen, did you really think controlling the heaven-incinerating flame would allow you to dominate the flame Dao? Today, I'll show you that there are many powerful flames not any weaker than the heaven-incinerating flame. Yan Weishan suddenly raised his flame spear, and red flames exploded out of his body. Those flames were the same color as blood. His manifestation rumbled behind him. Vague images of high mountains could be seen within, but it was too vague to see anything clearly. As his manifestation rumbled, his spear, which was originally one composed of flames, became solid. It was the same as a real spear, and divine runes circulated around it. Heavens, the three of them have reached the initial awakening of their manifestations. Xiaolin, Jin Mingwei, and Yan Weishan surrounded Long Chen. Three powerful Empyreans, with their manifestations at full power, emitted such pressure that it terrified everyone. If it was anyone else, even another Empyrean, then let alone fighting, they might not even have the courage to raise their weapons. That was a pressure that caused despair. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Although many people had thought that Long Chen's final fate would be to die here, they hadn't expected it to require three powerful experts to kill him. Long Chen, last time, I was too late to kill you when you stepped into the corrupt path's sacred land. This time, you won't be able to get away no matter what. I want to suck all your essence blood dry. Jin Mingwei licked his lips with a bloodthirsty light in his eyes. Jin Mingwei had a very intense desire for essence blood, especially the essence blood of experts. He couldn't resist that allure, as that was related to his cultivation technique. He had to consume the essence blood of experts to cultivate. There's no blood, but there's piss. Do you want to drink it? Asked Long Chen calmly. Even in such a tense situation, Long Chen's reply caused people's expressions to turn odd. Courting death. Jin Mingwei roared and sent another punch at Long Chen. What no one expected was that Long Chen simply let out a single palm to face Jin Mingwei's punch. A lightning rune appeared on his palm, and it shattered the blood runes around Jin Mingwei's fist, allowing Long Chen to catch his fist. At this moment, Xiaolin also attacked. A claw the size of a mountain crashed toward Long Chen. Xiaolin was still maintaining his Xian beast form. Only in this form could he threaten Long Chen. If he returned to his human form, his power would sharply drop. However, his huge body was not convenient for the others that fought alongside him. Long Chen suddenly twisted his body, pulling Jin Mingwei toward Xiaolin's claw. Then without even looking, Long Chen slashed his flame blade at Yan Weishan, who was coming right at him. Their two flame weapons clashed. Flames exploded, causing space to twist. The golden and blood-colored flames raged, looking like the apocalypse. Fortunately, people were far away enough that they weren't affected by the flames. Once the flames faded, the ground had been turned black, and a stinging scent hung in the air. Long Chen had just blocked Yan Weishan's attack when another bang rang out behind him. Jin Mingwei had been sent flying by Xiaolin. Due to Long Chen's move, he was not on guard against Xiaolin, while Xiaolin had attacked with his full power. Jin Mingwei coughed up a mouthful of blood. Xiaolin, you're courting death, roared Jin Mingwei. You're the one who flew over. What does it have to do with me? Retorted Jin Mingwei. All the distant experts saw it clearly. Long Chen's movements were extremely clean. At this moment, Long Chen's flame blade was still pressed against Yan Weishan's spear. Their two flame energies surged against each other. Yan Weishan smiled coldly. This flame of mine is pow. Long Chen was originally holding his flame blade with both hands, but he suddenly released one hand and slapped Yan Weishan across the face. Yan Weishan was sent flying, but due to diverting his energy for a slap, Long Chen's power was also lowered and he was sent flying by Yan Weishan's power. However, while they were both flying back, Yan Weishan had been slapped in the face. The spectators were all dumbfounded by Long Chen's actions. This kind of fighting style was something they had never seen and never even dreamed of. Who would bother slapping someone in the face during an intense battle? Stop chattering. I don't care what your flame is, sneered Long Chen. With a lightning blade in one hand and a flame blade in another, he shot toward Jin Mingwei and Xiaolin who were charging at him. Xiaolin was weak to flame, while Jin Mingwei's evil techniques were restricted by Long Chen's Thunder Force, which was a supreme Yang Force. The two of them were immediately forced back by him, but he was also knocked back. Long Chen died. Yan Weishan was enraged at being slapped, and his Yuan spirit appeared on his forehead. Flame energy exploded around him, and sacred chanting filled the air. He had activated the Nirvana scripture. Flame moon slashes the heavens. Yan Weishan swung his spear, and a huge crescent flame blade sliced toward Long Chen. Yan Weishan was truly infuriated. He didn't remember the last time anyone had struck him. By the time he had grown, no one had even dared to touch him. Long Chen's slap almost drove him insane. He immediately launched one of his killing attacks. Long Chen retreated while his own Yuan spirit appeared, chanting the Nirvana scripture. This chanting was even more sacred than Yan Weishan's chanting. It was grander and holier. A huge sphere condensed in Long Chen's right hand. With his lightning flash step, Long Chen vanished from his original location as the flame sphere smashed toward the crescent blade. Star fall struck the crescent blade. The world seemed to freeze for a moment before terrifying flames exploded in every direction. This was a world-shaking collision. Even the spectators were affected. Fortunately, there were Empyreans who protected people from the flames, or the weaker ones would have been incinerated. The rank 8 Celestials were green with fright. Having come to watch the fun, they almost lost their lives. Even this much distance was no guarantee of safety, but if they went further, they wouldn't be able to see anything. Don't hold back. Kill Long Chen. Seeing that he was unable to do anything to Long Chen with this attack, Yan Weishan roared and his Yuan spirit shone. The mountain range within his manifestation seemed to erupt. The sky trembled. It was like the world had been struck by a giant hammer. Boom. Long Chen used his flame blade to block Yan Weishan's attacks. However, his flame blade exploded almost instantly, and he was blown back. Yan Weishan's power had doubled after activating his manifestation. Alright, but Long Chen's essence blood is mine. Jin Mingwei smiled coldly and his Yuan spirit appeared. It was a blood-colored figure, and it suddenly let out a sharp wail as if it was in great pain. A blood chain appeared within Jin Mingwei's manifestation and shot out. It stabbed through Jin Mingwei's back, shocking everyone. Was this suicide? After being pierced by his chain, Jin Mingwei's body withered as his blood was sucked away. He became a desiccated corpse. GGG. Long Chen, I'll let you experience true power. This was actually something I was planning on saving for Xiaolin. You can die in peace now. Even Jin Mingwei's voice had changed. It was like the voice of a hellish specter, extremely sharp like it was stabbing their ears. Jin Mingwei's corpse-like body suddenly moved. A withered claw reached toward Long Chen, and he met it with a punch. The instant Long Chen's fist met Jin Mingwei's withered claw, Jin Mingwei's manifestation shook. A terrifying burst of energy erupted, causing Long Chen's expression to change. He was actually unable to block it and was sent flying. Die! At that exact moment, a huge claw slammed down from the air. Black chi surged out of Xiaolin, forming overlapping images of him. That black chi was like a flood, increasing his power. Boom! Long Chen was struck head-on by the claw and violently coughed up blood. Three powerful experts were unleashing their full power at once, forcing Long Chen back over and over again, and finally, Xiaolin's claw caused him to cough up blood. Everyone was watching with rapt attention. It seemed like the three of them had yet to unleash their full power before. They were only bringing out their real abilities now. What they didn't know was that in truth, Xiaolin, Mingwei, and Yen Weishan represented the forces of three different factions. If it weren't for Long Chen, they would never work together. Although the three of them had all come to the dragon slaughtering convention, each of them was wary of the others. The reason Xiaolin had held back despite clearly being suppressed by Long Chen was because he was wary of Mingwei and Yen Weishan learning of his trump cards while he learned nothing of theirs. Although they weren't enemies, the three of them were definitely not friends. None of them wanted to expose their true power to others. Yen Weishan had seen through this point, which was why he had called out for Mingwei to help so that all three of them could suppress Long Chen. Originally, his thought was that if the three of them went out, they would be able to defeat Long Chen even without exposing their trump cards. After all, there were too many people here. Exposing their trump cards was putting themselves at risk. It was leaving behind an unfavorable element for their future competitions with the other region's heavenly geniuses. However, Long Chen's slap in the face had almost driven Yen Weishan crazy. He no longer bothered with holding back his trump card, instantly fully activating his manifestation. Seeing that Yen Weishan had fully activated his manifestation, if the other two continued holding back, it would be offending Pill Valley, so they also unleashed their full power. That way, all of them would know each other's trump cards. That wasn't that bad. With their three manifestations at full power, all the heavenly Tao energy was sucked away by them. Even fellow Empyreans were almost unable to sense any heavenly Tao energy. It was like the world's energy was sucked dry by the three of them. At this point, even the Dragonblood warriors were starting to worry about Long Chen. The three of them were just too powerful. "Long Chen, you're dead," roared Yen Weishan. The volcanoes in his manifestation began to erupt, and his power continued to rise as he stabbed his spear at him. "If this is your full power, you'll probably be the ones to die," said Long Chen. The lightning blade and flame blade in his hands vanished. He actually sent out a bare-handed punch at Yen Weishan's spear. "Foolish arrogance," raged Yen Weishan. This was clearly an insult. His spear whistled as he thrust it with all his power, wanting to break Long Chen's arm. Buzz! The divine ring behind Long Chen was originally still, but it now began to revolve. As it did, the 108,000 stars in his body began to shine. A thunderous rumbling came from within his body. The five-colored divine ring spun faster and faster, and the rumbling grew louder. Long Chen had found that after fully condensing all 5 stars, the 108,000 stars in his acupuncture points seemed to have come to life. They were completely different from before. The 5-colored ring spun faster and faster, but the 5-point star inside stayed still. However, its light grew more intense. As its light sprinkled over Long Chen, an image of a star appeared on every single one of his 108,000 scales. The rumbling coming from Long Chen's body suddenly reached a peak, and Long Chen let out a heaven-shaking roar. Boom! Long Chen's palm slammed into Yen Weishan's spear. The spear exploded, and Long Chen's palm continued onwards. Seeing this, Yen Weishan instinctively twisted his body, causing Long Chen's palm to strike his shoulder. Yen Weishan's shoulder blew up, and his upper body was dyed in blood. Without waiting for him to recover, Long Chen followed up with another punch at Yen Weishan's head. If this struck, he'd definitely die. Heavenly Flame Shield. Yen Weishan had no time to dodge. Acting practically on instinct, his Yuan spirit formed hand seals together with his true body, summoning 2 flame barriers. One was summoned by his true body, while one was summoned by his Yuan spirit. With both shields working together, their defensive power was 10 times greater than a single shield. Regretfully, the shields had been constructed too hastily and hadn't even reached their strongest state before Long Chen's punch arrived. They exploded, while Long Chen's fist smashed into Yen Weishan's nose. This fist was originally powerful enough to kill Yen Weishan for sure, but after going through the 2 barriers, its power, speed, and accuracy had all dropped. It had less than 10% of its power, but that was enough to crush Yan Weishan's nose and leave an indent in his face. This sudden change caught everyone off guard. Before they could react, Yan Weishan was already in desperate straits. Just as Long Chen was preparing for another attack to completely annihilate Yan Weishan, a blood-colored sword whistled toward his back. Blood qi exploded out of it, filling the air with the scent of blood. This was Jin Mingwei's powerful attack. Even before it arrived, Long Chen felt a chill on his back. This attack was definitely not ordinary. Long Chen had no time to kill Yan Weishan. Thus, he sent a kick to the latter's crotch to send him flying, making him let out a miserable shriek. When Long Chen had broken his nose, Yan Weishan had merely let out a pained grunt, but this kick was too ruthless. It was just a quick kick, but it still possessed enough power to crush Yan Weishan's life rod, which was why he emitted such a shriek. Practically, every man turned cold. Some people even crossed their legs involuntarily, feeling a sympathetic pain. Long Chen used the rebound power of the kick to move back ever so slightly. The blood-colored sword barely shot past his body. Boom! The sword stabbed into the ground and exploded. Blood runes filled the space. As the blood runes spread, the ground transformed. It melted like snow, turning into a sea of blood. Everyone sucked in a cold gasp of air. That sword was absolutely terrifying. How was one supposed to receive it? When it exploded, a person's body would corrode into blood. Long Chen was also shocked. He had merely felt it to be very strange, so it was unexpected that it possessed such a terrifying corrosive effect. After barely dodging the sword, Long Chen sensed Xiaolin's claw smashing toward him with enough power to break apart heaven and earth. In terms of power, you are just trash. Long Chen's divine ring circulated as he sent out a single punch. A powerful fist image flew out. Boom! Xiaolin's giant body was sent flying. Most shockingly, there was blood in the air. Heavens, Xiaolin's claw was injured. Someone sharp-eyed saw that Xiaolin's claw was a mass of pulp now. The Xian beasts didn't need to use weapons. Xiaolin's claws were his weapons. However, a bare-handed Long Chen had actually injured his claw. In terms of power, Xiaolin had been completely defeated. That will shake the entire martial heaven continent, sighed someone. During this entire battle, people had seen that Long Chen was holding back, especially when he fought Xiaolin. He always raised his own power in accordance with Xiaolin's power. When Xiaolin was only using the power of his physical body, Long Chen would also only use the power of his physical body. Only once Xiaolin used his divine abilities had Long Chen used magical arts. He was doing this to prove to everyone that a human could still suppress a Xian beast with power. This was a provocation to the Xian beasts. The Xian beasts were probably about to go berserk. This is the true power of the 5 stars. Long Chen had an excited smile. After all that suffering, he had finally gotten his reciprocation for fully condensing the 5 stars. Die! Long Chen had just blown Xiaolin back when Yan Weishan charged over ferociously. His eyes were completely red, looking like he wanted to bite Long Chen to death. It went without saying that an Empyrean's recovery abilities were truly heaven-defying. Yan Weishan had actually fully healed those injuries in just a breath's time. As for whether or not his life rod had regrown, no one knew. Wanting to kill me is a grand aspiration, but you will probably never achieve it in your lifetime, sneered Long Chen. Under the illumination of his divine ring and 5-point star, he let out a single punch, once more breaking Yan Weishan. After forcing back Yan Weishan, a lightning blade reappeared in Long Chen's left hand, and he slashed it through space. There, a blood-colored sword had just condensed when it was instantly crushed. The lightning blade didn't pause, continuing toward Jin Mingwei, who was forming hand seals. Jin Mingwei was also forced back. Don't bring out the same move in front of me twice, sneered Long Chen. He had already gotten a grasp of that attack's fluctuations, and he wouldn't give Jin Mingwei another chance to unleash it. A fierce fight began. Flames and lightning raged as Long Chen fought against these 3 powerful Empyreans. With his divine ring circulating, his attacks were incredibly sharp. Xiaolin, Yan Weishan, and Jin Mingwei roared furiously over and over again as they unleashed their full power. Their divine abilities and magical arts seemed limitless, but no matter what they tried, Long Chen would crush their moves. Even 3 against 1, they can't defeat Long Chen. Long Chen really is heaven-defying. People were filled with shock as they looked up at the sky. Brilliant light constantly exploded, and space was twisting wildly. They were barely able to see 4 figures repeatedly clashing. This wasn't a level of power humans should possess. The world was constantly shaking, and rubble occasionally shot through the air. After 2 hours, the fierce battle was still continuing with no signs of slowing down. Instead, it only grew more berserk. Suddenly, a large bone claw appeared in the sky. It emitted powerful divine light as it smashed toward Long Chen. They've finally started using divine items? Startled cries rang out. This bone claw was clearly a terrifying divine item. Divine might shook the sky. That huge bone claw was an incredibly powerful divine item that Xiaolin had taken out. This was a divine item left behind by one of the Darkwing Devil Tiger race's ancestors. It was the remains a terrifying expert of their race had left behind. All the power of that expert's cultivation base was condensed within it. Amongst the 3 of them, the most infuriated one would have to be the one who had been slapped in the face, had his nose broken, and his balls crushed, Yen Weishan. However, he had actually endured, while Xiaolin had taken out a divine item first. This was because of Long Chen's dragon pressure. Xiaolin was unable to bring out all of his power because of it, resulting in him being the weakest amongst them. When the 3 of them worked together, due to his large body, he was unable to cooperate nimbly. He could only wait at the side and look for opportunities. He, a heavenly genius of the Shen beasts, had actually turned into a mere extra with everyone watching. That was unacceptable to him. However, the other 2 also refused to be the first to take out a divine item. That was because being the first one to take out a divine item would represent that that person was the first to be unable to go on without one. That was why the 3 of them had continued fighting without them, but Xiaolin couldn't endure any longer. He was extremely sullen inside. All he wanted was to kill Long Chen. Not bothering with anything else, he became the first to take out a divine item, his giant bone claw. A terrifying pressure caused even the distant spectators to feel like space had frozen. They felt that this divine item was different from other divine items. It was even more terrifying, even more powerful. "I just knew you are the weakest," laughed Long Chen. Xiaolin almost coughed up blood. Just being the first to take out a divine item was embarrassing enough, but now Long Chen had added salt into his wound. Long Chen was fearless in the face of the bone claw. Instead, he was excited. His battle intent had been ignited. Break! A black saber appeared in Long Chen's hands, and a huge saber image soared into the sky, slashing the bone claw. Boom! Divine light exploded. Huge waves spread through space like an angry tsunami. This was the dreadful power of divine items. The surrounding space around them exploded. Long Chen and Xiaolin were both blown away. Yen Weishan and Jin Mingwei were at the core of the battlefield and were the first to be affected by their divine power. However, divine light appeared around them as well, protecting them. A golden cauldron appeared above Yen Weishan, emitting waves of golden light that protected him. As for Jin Mingwei, the gourd on his waist was now above his head. Waves of blood qi came from it, preventing Jin Mingwei from being affected by the shockwaves of the divine items. Why is it that their divine items are able to release such power in their hands? Could it be that they're already powerful enough to use divine items? Cried out someone. Previously, people had seen the Empyreans fighting Guoran, Meng Qi, and the others wielding divine items. However, they weren't able to unleash this much power from their divine items. It's not that they're fully using their divine items, but that their divine items are above ordinary divine items, explained the Empyrean from the neutral camp. Only Empyreans in possession of divine items were qualified to understand the difference between divine items. Some of these people hadn't even seen divine items before, so they naturally didn't know that divine items were classified according to different levels. The divine items in these Empyreans' hands were at most quasi-divine items. They didn't have innate divine runes. However, even quasi-divine items weren't something that they were qualified to use. They couldn't activate their true divine power. The reason Xiaolin, Mingwei, and Yan Weishan's divine items were able to unleash such power wasn't because they could control them, but because of the divine items themselves. The power of divine items was so great that they could destroy the world, but it was also because of their great power that they had to be sealed with restrictions when they were made. Otherwise, if a divine item attacked its master, the world would be thrown into chaos. Divine items themselves were only able to control a very small portion of their power. 99% of their power required a person to activate. That was why, although some of the spectators possessed divine items, none of them had a divine item that could unleash such power. They couldn't even unleash a tenth of their divine item's power. However, these principles were only known by Empyreans. The others didn't have that much understanding of divine items. All they knew was that Long Chen and Xiaolin's exchange was an apocalyptic one. Even from such a distance, they were shaken by the divine might. They didn't even dare to move. Long Chen rested Evil Moon on his shoulder. Holding Evil Moon, he was full of confidence as well as an intense desire to fight. This was still his favorite way of fighting. Simple hacks of a saber were what made him feel the most content. Tell me, why bother testing me bit by bit? Shouldn't you have brought out your divine items earlier? How is this any different from taking off your pants to fart? Even tigers use their full power to hunt down a rabbit. Well, there's just one thing I want to ask you. Does your face not hurt? Long Chen's words were another slap in their faces. At first, the three of them had thought that Long Chen was trapped like a turtle in a jar, and if it weren't for the orders from higher-ups, they wouldn't have even bothered coming. They would have ordered others to handle him, as doing it personally was lowering their own status. However, as soon as they started fighting, they were forced to bring out all their power and were still unable to defeat him. Thinking of how arrogant they had been and how they had wanted to use the least amount of power to defeat him, they all felt their faces twitch. The more arrogant they had been, the more resounding this slap was. Shameless arrogance, face your death, raged Yan Weishan. Long Chen's words burned his cheeks. The golden furnace above his head suddenly grew and smashed toward Long Chen. The golden furnace left behind a large black mark as the void exploded wherever it passed. The world was not able to bear its power. If being arrogant means a person should die, none of you should be alive, sneered Long Chen. He slashed Evil Moon. The golden furnace's runes lit up as it activated its own power. Long Chen didn't bother with that. He knew that all he had to do was slash with his own power. Evil Moon would handle the rest. Boom. When Evil Moon and the golden furnace met, a faint black light came from Evil Moon. The collision of two divine items caused space to crumble, and spiderweb-like cracks spread through the air. That sight was shocking to behold. The collision of divine items caused powerful shockwaves. Long Chen was thrown into the distance, his hand bleeding. He raged, "Evil Moon, what are you doing? They've activated their divine power. What are you still sleeping for?" The reason Long Chen was angry with Evil Moon was because it had used its divine power only to protect itself, resulting in him receiving a huge backlash. He saw that on the other side, Yan Weishan hadn't suffered any backlash at all. The majority of his power had been blocked by the golden furnace. Aren't you someone who wants to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sovereigns? I trust that you can handle this. My energy is rather precious, and I can't waste it. They aren't life-star experts and can't bring out the real power of their divine items. I'm sure you'll be fine, said Evil Moon lazily. What the fuck, you Connor? Didn't we agree that you would help me block the power of divine items? The current situation is a bit special. That furnace's origins are a bit terrifying, and it's not easy to handle. You deal with it for now. I'll start thinking of how I can get a big bite of meat from it. All right, stop nattering. Don't worry, you'll definitely be fine. I look favorably upon you, said Evil Moon. Boom. Long Chen had no more time to communicate with Evil Moon. Mingwei's blood gourd grew to the size of a mountain and smashed toward him. He hastily raised his saber to block. His wrist almost broke, enraging him. Divine items had a special kind of divine energy that gravely injured his body and was difficult to block, but Evil Moon refused to help, which made Long Chen want to curse. Fortunately, his healing abilities were monstrous. During this time, the world trees in the primal chaos space had already grown to over 6,000 meters and could offer him an ocean's worth of life energy. The golden furnace, the blood gourd, and the bone claw all whistled toward him. Long Chen roared furiously, slashing Evil Moon over and over again to force the three powerful divine items back. The intensity of the battle reached a new level. This is their real power? Each of their attacks can kill an Empyrean. This power is enough to cause despair, sighed an Empyrean bitterly. He regretted coming now. He might be classified as a heavenly genius, but this terrifying battle was a grave blow to his confidence. Another Empyrean patted him on the shoulder with a similarly bitter but sympathetic smile. The experts who belonged to Sha Guangyan's camp were all shocked. However, they were also afraid. They were afraid that the three of them would be unable to suppress Long Chen and allow him to escape. If he did escape, then as people who had participated in the attack against the Dragonblood Legion, they would have to face a terrifying reprisal. If Long Chen wanted to kill them, then there would be nowhere for them to run. Their only hope was for Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin, and Jin Mingwei to kill Long Chen right here. Otherwise, they would never be at peace again. Boom. Long Chen forced Jin Mingwei's blood gourd back. Flames exploded out of Long Chen, and a golden sphere shot out. A wave of flames spread, and a translucent figure appeared in the sky suddenly, wrapped by the flames. Bloodkill 1, I noticed you a long time ago. You want to sneak attack me? You're far too lacking, sneered Long Chen. A huge saber image slashed toward that translucent figure. Boom. That translucent figure was blown apart by Long Chen's attack. However, once it shattered, people realized it was just a fake. Long Chen seemed to have realized it was a fake a while ago and wasn't surprised at all. His Yuan spirit shone brighter, and the flames in the sky rapidly condensed. Raging flame prison. Countless flame chains formed a huge net that covered a huge space. A muffled sound came from a certain region. Long Chen snorted and slashed his saber there. Now where are you going to hide? A sharp sword appeared in the space Long Chen slashed, blocking his saber. Bloodkill 1's figure appeared. Bloodkill 1 coughed up a mouthful of blood and flew back. He was actually unable to receive a single blow from Long Chen. Bloodkill 1 couldn't help being shocked. He had known that Long Chen was powerful, too powerful for him to block his attacks. However, he had used a magical art when his sword had clashed with his saber, weakening the power of his saber 18 times. If he used this move on anyone else, their power would be reduced to less than a tenth, and he would just have to receive that tiny portion. However, Long Chen's power was incomparably concentrated, making it so Bloodkill 1 could only reduce his power by about 50%. The remaining force caused him to cough up blood, and his sword was damaged. His divine item now had a large nick in it. Originally, Bloodkill 1 hadn't planned on participating in this battle. The Dragon Slaughtering Convention had its own goals, and it was being controlled by Pill Valley. Pill Valley, the Xian Beasts, and the Corrupt Path had become the dominating forces behind the convention. As for the Bloodkill Hall, they had been invited, but Pill Valley had made its intentions clear to them. This matter would be led by Pill Valley. Others could participate, but they had to listen to orders. So in the end, the Bloodkill Hall had sent Bloodkill 1 and not that mysterious expert. Bloodkill 1 was only sent as a formality. Bloodkill 1 was very clear on that. He was only here to show his face and show that the Bloodkill Hall's people had come. This was to give face to Pill Valley. If the Bloodkill Hall really cared about this convention, they wouldn't have sent Bloodkill 1 but that terrifying girl instead. Bloodkill 1 had thought he would just be a spectator and wouldn't even have a chance to fight. However, just now, Yan Weishan had sent him a secret message to cooperate with the three of them and sneak attack Long Chen. Yan Weishan knew that Bloodkill 1 wasn't as strong as the three of them in ordinary combat, but his assassination arts were extremely terrifying. With the three of them drawing Long Chen's attention, There was a high chance Bloodkill 1 could kill or at least heavily injure Long Chen in one attack. However, no one had expected that as soon as Bloodkill 1 snuck his way onto the battlefield, before he could attack, he was noticed by Long Chen. It was like Long Chen had long since prepared a trap for him and had simply been waiting. They didn't know that Long Chen's 9-star Hegemon body art had fully memorized the air of the Bloodkill Hall's assassins. Bloodkill 1's assassination arts might be marvelous, and he might have a divine item to mask his presence, but he wasn't able to trick the senses of the 9-star Hegemon body art. As soon as he had tried to sneak his way over to him, Long Chen had sensed him. Long Chen had waited until he was close enough to launch an attack. However, Bloodkill 1 was truly amazing. Long Chen had clearly landed an attack on him, but he had used some kind of technique to switch himself out with a fake and dodge his first attack. Regretfully, Long Chen had already been prepared for him. He was now imprisoned in a cage of flames. Save him! Yen Weishan's expression changed. He hadn't expected Long Chen to be so sly as to have prepared a trap for Bloodkill 1. In this scenario, Bloodkill 1 wouldn't be able to last for long before being killed. After all, he hadn't awakened his manifestation. Yen Weishan was the first to charge out, his golden furnace smashing onto Long Chen's flame prison, wanting to destroy it. However, the flame prison was like cotton. His attack made the prison cave in, but it didn't break. At this moment, Long Chen was pressing on toward Bloodkill 1. Bloodkill 1 had summoned his manifestation, and his Yuan spirit was unleashing powerful magical arts that filled the space around him with sword light. However, he was repeatedly forced back by Long Chen and was hacking up blood. It went without saying that Bloodkill 1 was very powerful. Even under Long Chen's torrential attacks, he managed to last 3 exchanges. However, he was like a candle flickering in the wind and might be extinguished at any moment. Long Chen was like a ferocious beast, while the former was just a slightly stronger sheep. "Focus all our attacks on one spot," shouted Yen Weishan at the other two. He could already tell that Long Chen was too powerful. With the 3 of them joining hands, even if they could defeat him, they wouldn't be able to kill him. If Long Chen wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to stop him. If they lost a powerful helper like Bloodkill 1, this dragon slaughtering convention would most likely end up being a joke. Hu Xiaolin's Bone Claw, Jin Mingwei's Blood Gourd, and Yen Weishan's Golden Furnace all shrank to just 3 meters in size. The 3 divine items began to shine, joining together to smash into Long Chen's raging flame prison. With the 3 of them concentrating all their power on one tiny spot, they knew that despite the flame prison's flexibility and tenacity, they would still be able to at least create a large hole in it. Breaking just a portion of a magical art should be enough to cause the rest of it to weaken and even crumble. Boom! The 3 of their divine items pierced Long Chen's flame prison, delighting them. But their smiles quickly vanished. The instant that they broke through Long Chen's flame prison, Long Chen sent Bloodkill 1 flying toward their 3 divine items. Everything had been calculated perfectly. Boom! The 3 divine items emitted their divine power, instantly killing Bloodkill 1. Let alone his Yuan spirit, not even the slightest speck of him remained. How vicious! How dare you kill him just because you didn't want to split the glory? Eat my saber! Long Chen roared as if they had killed an old friend of his. Jin Mingwei, Hu Xiaolin, and Yen Weishan almost coughed up blood from anger. Long Chen was actually trying to pin the blame on them for Bloodkill 1's death? The thing that infuriated them the most was that their divine items had already flown out, and they had no time to call them back. They had to face Long Chen's attack without them. Boom! The 3 of them were blown far into the distance by Long Chen's saber. Yen Weishan coughed up a mouthful of blood as he was a flame cultivator. Where'd he go? The 3 of them called back their divine items but suddenly found that Long Chen had vanished. Suddenly, startled cries rang out in the distance. A black saber image slashed through the experts that had once attacked the Dragonblood Legion. Countless experts were blown to bits. The Bloodkill Hall's experts that had come with Bloodkill 1 were all paid particular attention. Dragonblood Legion, other than the neutral camp's people, slaughter them all. Following Long Chen's orders, the Dragonblood warriors roared ferociously and raised their weapons. Boss, I've been waiting for you to say that. Guoran was the fastest to reach his enemies with wings appearing on his armor. Didn't you want to kill us just now? Let's see who kills who. The Dragonblood warriors crashed down on their enemies like a tsunami. A huge battle erupted. Countless wooden stakes flew out of the ground. Even faster than Guoran, Chu Yao's attack landed first. Chu Yao's goal was clear. She targeted the Empyreans as she was the only Empyrean in the Dragonblood Legion. She immediately trapped 5 Empyreans and began to attack them. Guoran slashed his saber at the Empyrean who had fought against him at the beginning. Suddenly his chest plate opened. Dozens of needles shot out, piercing holes in the Empyrean's body. The Empyrean didn't even have time to recover from his shock when Guoran landed a kick that blew up his lower body. Did you think your daddy Guo only had that little ability? Fool, I have plenty of peerless techniques, sneered Guoran. This Empyrean had fought against Guoran for hours and had naturally assumed that he had managed to probe most of Guoran's abilities. He hadn't expected Guoran to actually be so sinister. Die! Guoran slashed his saber down again as his opponent only had half his upper body left. The poor Empyrean instinctively raised his divine item, which only resulted in the rest of his body exploding. A fist-sized figure of light hastily fled. However, his Yuan spirit hadn't gotten far when Sword Chi crashed down, turning it to dust. What the dash? You Zifeng, you snatched my prey, cried out Guoran. Next time you can take mine, said Yu Zifeng indifferently. He was already attacking another Empyrean. Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, Tang Wana, Gu Yang, and Meng Qi were all attacking. Each of them was fighting a powerful Empyrean. Meng Qi was surrounded by swordlight that formed a blooming lotus. She had a total of 999 flying swords. These were soul items Guoran had poured his blood, sweat, and tears into to forge. The person Guoran worshipped the most was Long Chen. However, the one he was most grateful for had recently changed to be Meng Qi. If it hadn't been for Meng Qi's help, there was no way he would have had enough soul energy to nourish his armor considering it was formed of multiple ancestral items. In order to thank Meng Qi, Guoran had spent a huge amount of time and energy to create these 999 flying swords. Soul gold had been smelted into them, allowing them to be controlled easily by Meng Qi's spiritual strength. With Meng Qi's powerful spiritual strength, these soul items formed a terrifying formation that made her enemies feel like they were surrounded by 999 experts. Her opponent was forced back over and over again. His heavenly Dao energy might be able to suppress Meng Qi's heavenly Dao energy, but it wasn't able to suppress her soul energy. Long Chen didn't glance at the battle after his attack and orders. He immediately returned back to his own battlefield. His attack, kills, orders, and return were all done in an instant. Just as Yen Weishan and the others were charging over, Long Chen received them midway, not allowing them to interfere with the battle. The one that Long Chen had been most worried about hadn't been Yen Weishan, Hu Xiaolin, or Jin Mingwei. No, the one he had been most worried about was Bloodkill 1. If Bloodkill 1 didn't die, he wouldn't dare to allow the Dragonblood Legion to fight. Once a battle started, Bloodkill 1 and his assassins could launch sneak attacks and bring the Dragonblood Legion great pain. Perhaps only Yu Zifeng, Guoran, and Chu Yao would be able to stop their assassinations. The others would be in danger. That was why even during that intense fight, he had kept some of his attention on Bloodkill 1. He was the greatest danger. As soon as Bloodkill 1 had died to his trap, he had taken advantage of everyone's shock to slaughter the rest of the Bloodkill Hall's experts. Now that the Bloodkill Hall's people were dead, the Dragonblood Legion would be safe, and only then did Long Chen issue the order to kill. Everyone, don't panic. They're only 10,000 people. We have 10 times their number, shouted someone to raise morale. They truly did have 10 times the Dragonblood Legion's members. Furthermore, many of them were rank 9 Celestials. On the surface, the power difference between them was stark. Others immediately began to echo what that person had said and attacked the Dragonblood warriors. Sword Chi swept through the air, saber images filled the sky. All kinds of magical arts and battle skills clashed. Boom! Long Chen slashed Yen Weishan's golden furnace, and both sides were forced back. Yen Weishan sneered, "How foolish! Are you really in such a hurry to see your subordinates die?" It had to be known that the people he had gathered were the elites amongst the elites from Pill Valley, the Corrupt Path, the Ancient Races, the Ancient Family Alliance, the Xian Beasts, and the Martial Heaven Alliance. Long Chen actually ordered his 10,000 people to attack these elites that outnumbered them 10-1? To him, that was the peak of folly. "You're the fool. Did you really think the Dragonblood Legion had revealed all its power before?" sneered Long Chen. Evil Moon swung through the air as he met all three of their attacks. He wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Although the two sides had already clashed and it had seemed like the Dragonblood Legion was in danger, that was because they had been fighting to stall for time. They hadn't unleashed all their power to avoid causing their opponents to be wary. Now it was different. Long Chen had arrived. They could fight without any misgivings or hiding anything. Each of the Dragonblood warriors was shining as the runes on their armor activated. Their swords immediately glowed with a sharp light. A rank 9 Celestial had just stabbed his spear at an ordinary Dragonblood warrior's chest. However, that Dragonblood warrior didn't even look at him as he slashed his sword at his opponent's head. As a result, that person's head exploded, while the Dragonblood warrior merely coughed up a mouthful of blood. "What the fuck? Their armor and weapons are all ancestral items," cried someone. Ordinary rank 9 Celestials would at most have a single ancestral item, while some people didn't have any. But every member of the Dragonblood Legion had two. Their ancestral items are strange. They're so strong. They have to be top-grade ancestral items. One person cried out a warning just as he was killed by a Dragonblood warrior. Even though he died, his warning was heeded by everyone. The armor and weapons in the Dragonblood warriors' hands were no ordinary ancestral items. What they didn't realize was that these ancestral items were not just top-grade. They were first-generation ancestral items. The item spirits of these ancestral were all fully loyal to their masters, which was what allowed them to unleash such immense power. Impossible! How can they have so many top-grade ancestral items? Raged someone. Ancestral items weren't that rare. Ordinary sects would all have one or two of them to maintain their karmic luck. However, it wasn't as if they were cabbages just sprouting out of the ground. Furthermore, not only did they have top-grade ancestral items, but each Dragonblood warrior had two. That made their opponents crazy with envy. "Kill them and their ancestral items will be ours," cried someone greedily. However, greed oftentimes led to death. That person was killed not long after crying out. What terrifying killing arts! In the distance, the neutral camp's experts were all shocked. They found that each of the Dragonblood warriors' attacks was refined and sharp. Their fighting style was shocking, as they continuously exchanged injury for injury or even suicidal moves. Despite that, the Dragonblood warriors' expressions were calm. There was no anger. They were simply calm and indifferent. A rank 8 Celestial of the Dragonblood Legion killed a rank 9 Celestial without batting an eye. It was simply natural, as if this was an incredibly minor thing. Witnessing this made other people's hair stand on end. If Yu Zifeng, Meng Qi, and Chu Yao's power was terrifying, then the display of these ordinary Dragonblood warriors was horrifying. "They are true experts who have gone through the tempering of blood and fire," sighed someone. Everyone here was an expert, a genius. But the display of the Dragonblood warriors gave them chills. At this time, Chu Yao, Meng Qi, Tang Wana, Guoran, Song Mingyuan, Yu Zifeng, Li Qi, and Gu Yang had tied down all the Empyreans. This had become a true battle of soldiers against soldiers, generals against generals. However, in just the first clash, a mass of experts had been slain by the Dragonblood Legion. It was just that the number disparity between the two sides was so immense that it didn't seem like much. Blood soaked the land. Translucent figures occasionally flew through the air. Those were the fleeing Yuan spirits whose physical bodies had been destroyed. Ordinary experts didn't have very powerful Yuan spirits. They weren't as condensed as the Yuan spirits of Empyreans. Some of them were killed just by random shockwaves. The Dragonblood Legion's ferocity caught everyone off guard. Yan Weishan's expression immediately became unsightly. He hadn't expected the Dragonblood Legion to be equipped to such a level. It had to be known that even with Pill Valley's financial power, gathering over 20,000 ancestral items could not be done in a short time. This completely surpassed his prediction. However, he trusted in his side's power. After all, they had so many people. Which one of them didn't have trump cards? Suppressing the Dragonblood Legion would just be a matter of time. As they fought Long Chen, they saw blood spurting from his hand with every exchange. They felt like Long Chen wouldn't be able to last much longer. However, even after all this time, his aura hadn't changed in the slightest. There were no signs of it starting to fall. They were in a stalemate. The four of them crazily fought in the sky, while the Dragonblood Legion was slaughtering their enemies below. Blood dyed the land. There were severed limbs and broken weapon fragments scattered throughout the area. This was an incredibly bitter battle. The neutral camp's experts all stared with fright and shock. The Dragonblood Legion seemed to be a group of bloodthirsty magical beasts tearing through these experts. Ziyan watched. She didn't say a word nor express any opinion. It was like she was just a spectator. In the end, she sighed, "Perhaps I shouldn't have come. If you didn't come, Master wouldn't be happy. You will have to face your fate sooner or later," said Yutong. The slaughter continued on the battlefield. The Battle of the Empyreans was still undecided, but the Dragonblood Legion's killing power was too great. In just a short incense stick's worth of time, over 10,000 experts had fallen, while there was not even a single casualty amongst the Dragonblood Legion. That was thanks to the 50 wood cultivators amongst the Dragonblood Legion. Anytime someone was injured, they would immediately wave their staves and heal them in an instant. Furthermore, their armor was protecting their vitals. They wouldn't give their opponents any chance to inflict mortal injuries on them. The opposing experts were all infuriated. They tried to charge through the Dragonblood Legion to kill the wood cultivators, but they were all slaughtered midway. The wood cultivators were the greatest assurance for the Dragonblood warriors' lives. Long Chen had naturally anticipated that their enemies would target them, so the formation they were in was created with over 10 barriers between them and their enemies. It could be said that if anyone wanted to kill the wood cultivators, they would have to completely destroy the Dragonblood Legion's formation. However, if someone focused on breaking their formation, they would be unable to ambush the wood cultivators. Quite a few experts tried without succeeding. They all died to the Dragonblood Legion's sharp blades. As soon as they tried to attack the wood cultivators, they didn't even have a chance to escape. After hundreds of experts who thought too much of themselves died attempting it, people finally stopped and began a head-on fight against the Dragonblood warriors. No wonder they're called the Dragonblood Legion. Over 10,000 people who are able to work together perfectly, it's truly a rare sight. On the other hand, although their opponent's collective power is 10 times greater, they are nothing more than a wild mob. As a result, well, the results are easy to see, sighed someone in the neutral camp. The neutral camp's people could already see that although the Dragonblood Legion's fighting style looked chaotic and disordered, as if they were all fighting for themselves, they all had a tacit understanding with each other. As soon as someone needed help, someone would appear beside them. This was especially true when someone was in danger or had landed a heavy injury on an opponent. There was always someone who would come to assist or land the finishing blow. Many people were killed by this silent cooperation without even realizing it. The Dragonblood Legion's cooperation was at such a high level that others couldn't even understand it. Their cooperation raised their killing power to a peak, and they were not only in possession of great offense but also great defense. Up until now, not a single one of them had died. "Fuck, you monsters, I'm not playing around with you any longer." A rank 9 celestial whose arm had just been cut off suddenly cursed and fled. His courage had been completely broken. Over 20,000 of the experts gathered from various forces had been slain without killing a single member of the Dragonblood Legion. That was truly frightening. It made them feel profoundly powerless. Yan Weishan's group of 3 was still fighting Long Chen, while the other Empyreans were unable to assist them. They couldn't see any hope any longer. The Dragonblood Legion was too powerful. That person ended up taking the lead in fleeing, and the result was that his departure shook the confidence of the others. Hundreds of people followed his lead. That started a snowball effect. Despite Yan Weishan's furious roar, he couldn't stop everyone from running away. Yan Weishan's fury soared. There were still over 150,000 of them left. Although 20,000 of them had died, they still outnumbered the Dragonblood Legion 10-1. However, they actually lost just like this. The first expert had gotten 1,000 miles away when suddenly, four huge pillars of light soared into the sky from the core of the battlefield. The 4 pillars of light shot into the sky, blowing apart the clouds. "That direction, isn't it the Grand Han's capital city walls?" cried someone. The Grand Han's capital city walls were square-shaped, and its 4 corners corresponded to the 4 rays of light. However, now that the capital had vanished, the light seemed to come out of nowhere. Divine runes filled the sky and fell, covering the world. At this time, a huge barrier had enveloped everyone, including Long Chen and the others. The first expert who had fled was at the front, but when he slammed into the barrier, he exploded into bloody mist. What? The experts rushing to flee hastily stopped themselves. However, the barrier had appeared too suddenly, and quite a few people weren't able to stop their momentum and struck it. Continuous explosive sounds rang out as those people were all blown to bits. Even their ancestral items exploded. The appearance of this sudden barrier shocked everyone, including Long Chen. Was it to keep everyone here? However, when he looked at Yan Weishan and the others, he saw that they also had surprised expressions. They clearly hadn't known about this beforehand. "Peng Wanxing, isn't this formation supposed to be used for trapping Long Chen? Why is it trapping all of us?" cried an expert from the ancient family alliance. Peng Wanxing was also befuddled, and he roared back. "Sha Guangyan was the one who arranged this barrier. It was only supposed to be used to trap people within the city. How am I supposed to know what happened?" Sha Guangyan had invited an expert to set up a killing formation within the Grand Han's capital, turning it into a giant cage that Long Chen would never be able to escape from. All the matters were left to the mysterious expert Sha Guangyan had invited. Apparently, that formation master was extremely mysterious, but his enmity with Long Chen was like a sea of blood, which was why he had come to help Sha Guangyan. However, that mysterious expert hadn't revealed his face the entire time. And since Sha Guangyan was dead, no one knew where that mysterious expert had gone to. Now the formation had ended up covering a huge space 10 times greater than it was supposed to. No one could escape now. "Send out the distress signal." "You idiot, the formation blocks our messages." Panicked cries rang out. Someone tried launching a ranged attack at the formation, but the barrier caused his attack to rebound and kill him. "Dragonblood Legion, ignore the formation. Kill all these people," shouted Long Chen. Although he didn't know the situation behind the formation, at least currently, it didn't matter. No! The Dragonblood Legion's rhythm didn't change. They were like one giant slaughter machine, slaying these experts in droves. Their so-called alliance was thrown in complete chaos and they were unable to form any effective defense. More and more of them were dying. Zither Fairy, your elusive music immortal palace is also one of the protectors of the continent. Are you just going to watch these murderous devils do as they please? Yan Weishan suddenly let out a furious roar. The 3 of them were unable to do anything to Long Chen, and they couldn't help their people. The experts standing in the neutral camp turned to Ziyen in surprise. Did Ziyen have some sort of relationship with Pill Valley? What did it mean for them to be the protectors of the Martial Heaven continent? They had never heard of such a thing. "How despicable," snorted Yutong disdainfully. Ziyen didn't react. It was like she hadn't heard Yan Weishan's shout. It was unknown what she was thinking. "Zither Fairy, please dash. Zither Fairy, save me dash." Although there were many experts on that side, the Dragonblood Legion cut them down like wheat, harvesting their lives. They had nowhere to run now and began to beg Ziyen for help, but their begging ended up splitting their attention, causing them to die even faster. Twang! The sound of a zither suddenly rang out as heavy as a bell. People felt like their spiritual yuan and heavenly Tao energy were instantly stripped away. As a result, the magical arts and battle skills that were in the midst of being unleashed dissipated. Everyone was shocked and involuntarily paused, turning to look at Ziyan in shock. Long Chen also stopped fighting and flew back to the Dragonblood Legion. He stared at Ziyan coldly. Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin and Jin Mingwei also returned to their own groups. The other experts hid behind them like chicks behind their mother hen. Previously, they had been full of disdain toward the Dragonblood Legion. Now, they only had fear. Yan Weishan couldn't help sighing with relief inside upon seeing Ziyan interfere. On the other hand, Hu Xiaolin's eyes were spitting flames. The experts he had brought from the Darkwing Devil Tiger race had been cut down. Only 3 of them remained. That was partially the result of the Darkwing Devil Tiger race's experts being too conceited. They had charged to the very front of the battlefield, so naturally their losses were greater. Miss Ziyan, are you becoming enemies with me? Long Chen took a deep breath, doing his best to keep his voice calm. However, he was unable to do so. His voice contained a kind of anger that could not be described with words. Long Chen didn't fear any of his enemies, but he didn't want to become enemies with people he knew. Most importantly, there was a faint relationship between himself and Ziyan that was very unclear. For Ziyan to interfere made him feel extremely aggrieved and even indignant. None of you are to participate. Ziyan looked back at Yutong and the others she had brought before slowly walking out. Ziyan walked to the middle of the 2 camps. She lightly shook her head. I don't want to be your enemy, nor have I ever wanted to be. I hope that this matter can end here. You've already done what you've come to do. Your friends you've saved. The person you wanted to kill, you've killed. You've gotten your vengeance, you've established your power, you've intimidated everyone. Your light will drown out everyone else in the Eastern Shen region. There is no one in the junior generation who can compete against you any longer. You've already done everything you can do, so you can release these innocent people. Ziyan looked at Long Chen with a complicated expression. There was even a touch of panic in her eyes as she didn't know what she should do. However, she had no choice but to come out because she was the future successor of the elusive music immortal palace. There were some things that she had to face. She couldn't run. Tell me, who is innocent? Demanded Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen's current appearance toward her, Ziyan was pained. However, she had no choice but to force herself to say, there are many people here who didn't know what exactly happened. It was Sha Guangyan who Long Chen interrupted. Are you telling me that people can do whatever they want as long as they don't know what's really happening? Not knowing allows them to do whatever they want to suck up to others? Not knowing allows them to raise their butcher's blade against my brothers? That's just a huge joke. A person isn't free from their crimes just because they don't know the details. If that were true, I would simply kill them all and say that I didn't know the details, so no one could get vengeance on me. Long Chen's voice grew louder and louder until it was a furious roar filled with killing intent. Are their heads just for show? You want me to let them off because they're innocent? However, even if they didn't know the truth, they still came to kill us. If we weren't strong enough, we'd have been annihilated, and who would come out to say that we were innocent then? So don't talk to me about how people are innocent. That word is nauseating. Don't bring up anything about truth either because there is no truth in this world. Whoever's mouth is larger, whoever's fist is harder is the one telling the truth. What did they do when Pill Valley slandered me? They curried favor, not caring about the truth to suck up to Pill Valley. Since they had the conscience to do this and be enemies with me wanting to kill me, tell me why exactly I am supposed to let them go? Long Chen's voice rose in waves and crashed down like a tsunami. It was like the entire world was echoing his roar. His roar was like that of a demon god, and the killing intent in his eyes showed his hatred. Long Chen never told others about his grievances. He didn't need to explain himself to others. However, being blocked by Ziyan infuriated him to the point that he needed to vent his rage. Long Chen, slaughter isn't able to solve problems. The Great Era is coming, but each time a great era comes, it's followed by a terrifying tribulation. The heavenly geniuses that rise in each great era always give birth to a sovereign in the end. However, No sovereign walked to the peak through slaughter. They were unrivaled due to their humanity. Long Chen, I don't want to be enemies with you. I'm begging you not to slaughter these innocent people, said Ziyen. Long Chen looked at Ziyen, staring into her eyes. The atmosphere was so tense that it was possible to hear the drop of a pin. The Dragonblood warriors didn't make a sound. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan'er exchanged looks, not knowing what to say. In truth, they had long since learned of Long Chen's relationship with Ziyen. Back in the eastern wasteland, Ziyen had sent him a photographic jade with a recording of a soul-calming song. It had been extremely beneficial to the Dragonblood Legion's growth back then. Each of them had benefited from it. As women, they saw Ziyan's special feelings toward Long Chen. Chu Yao suddenly opened her mouth, but she saw Meng Qi wave her hand. Meng Qi knew about Chu Yao's gentle nature. She wanted to let Long Chen take a step back. It was as Ziyen said. Up to now, Long Chen was the greatest winner. He had gotten everything he wanted to get. However, Meng Qi understood Long Chen and knew not to advise him when he was angry. Fine, said Long Chen suddenly. Everyone was shocked. Long Chen was actually conceding? Ziyen was relieved, but his next words made her heart grow cold. I can let off the innocents. I'll have Meng Qi investigate their souls, and if they really didn't know anything and thought I was truly wrong, I'll release them. But if they knew I was wrongly accused but still targeted me for ulterior motives, then sorry, I'm not in the habit of letting off my enemies. They must die. Long Chen's gaze swept across Yan Weishan and the others, his voice capable of cutting iron. Ziyen couldn't help feeling sad. Although she had known the chances of reaching a compromise with Long Chen were remote, she had still held onto some hope, but it was now extinguished. Long Chen didn't have any intention of letting these people off. He wanted to kill them all. Long Chen, his enemies naturally panicked. The reason why they had joined the side they were on was naturally not because of Long Chen, but because of Pill Valley. Long Chen clearly wanted to kill them. However, the person who was speaking was stopped by Yan Weishan. He had a faint smile, knowing that he had just pulled in a terrifying helper. Right now, everyone was trapped in this huge formation. No one could run. As long as Ziyen joined their side, Long Chen and his Dragonblood Legion would definitely die. Sorry, I might have to disappoint you, Long Chen. I can't just watch as you kill them, said Ziyen sadly. Ziyen was aggrieved. She had done her best to avoid a conflict with Long Chen, but reality was constantly forcing her to stand on the opposing side. Perhaps that was fate. There's nothing to be sorry about. I just have this kind of temperament. Gratitude and grudges must be repaid. Once we start fighting, life and death will only be separated by a fine line. Don't hold back because I definitely won't. Whether you kill me or I kill you, neither one of us has to say sorry, said Long Chen calmly. Many people were able to hear the complicated emotions between them, and yet the two of them were still going to have a life and death match. For a moment, no one said a word. The neutral camp's experts were filled with pity. Both Long Chen and Ziyen were experts at the top of their generation. One was a peerless domineering hero, while one was a beauty who could cause the downfall of a nation. Their feelings toward each other were easily seen through. Now, they had ended up at their current point, and Long Chen's final sentence was especially painful to hear. However, Yan Weishan's smile bloomed. He was an expert from Pill Valley. Others might not know Ziyan's power, but he did. It was related to ancient secrets. Ziyen slowly rose. A 7-string ancient zither appeared in front of her, and her white dress fluttered along with her long hair. She looked like she had just walked out of a painting. As her hands began to pluck the zither, all the world's energy seemed to listen to her music's call. A mass of primal chaos formed behind her. Within that primal chaos, an image of an ancient zither slowly appeared. Furthermore, the sound of a zither came from her manifestation. That was something that had not occurred in anyone else's manifestation. It was like a current of divine music, filling heaven and earth. It also filled people's hearts, cleansing them and making them forget about their desire to kill and fight. My manifestation is different from other people's. It's a unique manifestation of the elusive music immortal palace. Its name is Divine Music Through Eternity, said Ziyen softly. Hearing that, the expressions of all the Empyreans changed. This zither fairy is very powerful. Not only has her manifestation started to awaken, but it's also an unrivaled existence in this world, sighed Chu Yao. What's different about it compared to other Empyreans' manifestations? Asked Tang Wan. Other people's manifestations are like a field with many people planting a seed inside it. Each person is able to slowly grow their seed into a towering tree. However, the first person to fully awaken their manifestation will be the only one with a towering tree. The others will just be minor figures setting off their brilliance. As for the zither fairy's manifestation, it belongs only to her. It should be related to her cultivation technique. It's like there's only a single tree in the field, so all the nutrients are given to her. For her, awakening her full manifestation is just a matter of time. In other words, as long as she doesn't die, she will definitely become a true Empyrean, said Chu Yao. She looked at Long Chen profoundly. Divine music was still playing. It wasn't being played by Ziyen or her zither. Instead, it came from within her manifestation. It was constantly cleansing people's souls, dispelling their desire to fight. Chu Yao, Tang Wan'er, and Meng Qi looked at Long Chen. They actually had the same intention as Ziyen. They all wished for Long Chen to back out of this awkward situation. Friends were friends. There was no need to turn them into enemies. The song is a divine song. The music is immortal music. It can cleanse a person's heart and soul. However, in the end, it's just an outer appearance. Once the divine song is over, people's greed, brutality, and desires will flourish once more. Even if you could spread your divine song throughout the heavens, so what? Once people are used to the music, their true nature will reveal itself. Even gods and immortals can only do so much, said Long Chen indifferently. Long Chen suddenly slammed his hand onto Dragonbone Evil Moon. The sound resounded through heaven and earth, and a berserk desire to slaughter filled the air. This berserk sound clashed with Ziyan's music, shaking the world as two invisible forces raged in the air. The two sounds suddenly vanished, and the world returned to silence. Long Chen, be careful. That girl is the only one here who can kill you, warned Evil Moon. Someone who can kill me in the same realm has yet to be born. Long Chen's reply was indifferent. That wasn't arrogance, but the confidence he had to have to cultivate the 9-star Hegemon body art. If he didn't have this confidence, then he wouldn't be fit to cultivate the 9-star Hegemon body art. The world was tense with silence. It was calm before the storm, and the tension made it hard for them to breathe. Suddenly, the world began to shake. Everyone jumped in shock and hastily looked into the distance to see a mass of experts outside the barrier. The powerful senior experts of the Corrupt Path, Ancient Races, Ancient Family Alliance, Martial Heaven Alliance, Pill Valley, and the others had come and were using divine items to attack the barrier. Their attacks caused huge ripples to appear on the barrier, but it didn't break. Ah, Long Chen, you're dead. The top experts of the various sects have all come. There's no way you can run. Laughed a rank 9 celestial upon seeing his sect master. Long Chen, you've slaughtered the innocents. Don't you think you should kneel and pay for your sins? Shouted another person loudly. Their confidence was restored. All the experts on the outside were attacking the barrier, causing it to rumble. The barrier's runes were in the midst of dimming. It was clearly about to break. Long Chen, if you give up now, I will protect you and let you leave, said Ziyen. Zither Fairy, what do you think you're doing? Demanded Yen Weishan. Ziyen ignored Yen Weishan and looked only at Long Chen. However, she was disappointed when Long Chen shook his head. I've sworn not to run again. Prepare yourself. We're going to start fighting. The divine ring behind Long Chen began to spin once more, and his Yuan spirit appeared, rapidly forming hand seals. Streaks of light spread throughout his body and connected. Split the heavens 5. Long Chen knew that Ziyen was a terrifying opponent. Hence, he immediately used his strongest attack, and a huge saber image tore through the void at the wildly shouting experts. Ziyen sighed and plucked her zither. A wave of light spread. A second sound rang out from her manifestation, and another wave spread from it as well. The two waves joined and struck Long Chen's saber image with astounding speed. When Ziyan's two waves of light connected, they actually formed a huge spatial blade. That spatial blade shocked everyone, as it seemed to throw space and time into chaos. This was a kind of divine power that had surpassed the limits of other powers. Boom! Long Chen's saber image and the spatial blade met, causing heaven and earth to shake. However, there was no explosion. The two forces caused a berserk vortex in the air, but space quickly twisted, and the vortex shrank until it slowly vanished. Space returned to calm. Everyone was simply stunned. Even the people on the outside slowed down their attacks, most likely from shock. What kind of power is that? If the two attacks had caused a huge explosion that destroyed the land, that wouldn't cause so much shock. However, their attacks had strangely vanished instead. Everyone was shocked. This was some kind of unknown force. Is the Zither fairy able to use her divine item due to her manifestation? Unable to comprehend that power, many people came to such a conclusion. Yan Weishan, Jin Mingwei, and Hu Xiaolin were shocked, as well as envious. This truly was the power of a divine item. Ziyan's manifestation had a special origin and was connected to the divine item in her hand, the 7-string C suppressing zither. That allowed her to unleash a portion of its power. Damn it, if Long Chen had learned the 6th form of Split the Heavens, there's no way his attack could be erased like this, cursed Bao Buping regretfully. He and Bao Buping had already learned the 6th form. However, their power was limited, and they could not unleash the 6th form's full power. The 6th form's power was 10 times greater than the 5th. In Long Chen's hands, it would definitely be able to unleash immense power. However, the profundities behind the 6th form were not something that could be explained in just a few words. So Bao Buping and Chang Hao were extremely vexed. Long Chen took a deep breath and rested Evil Moon on his shoulder. Meng Qi, don't hold back any longer. Summon it. Meng Qi's expression changed. She looked from Ziyan to Long Chen. Do we really have to do this? Is it really worth it? Yes. Enmities must be repaid. We can't mix it with other feelings. Cloud's blood cannot be bled for nothing. It doesn't matter who or what reason they have, no one can stop our vengeance, said Long Chen resolutely. When Meng Qi heard Long Chen bring up Cloud, her hesitation vanished. She slowly formed hand seals, and a vast spiritual strength began to rise. Spiritual strength filled the world, causing the void to shake. A huge entity landed on the ground, and an ancient, desolate aura spread. What is that? Everyone was shocked to see a giant skeleton. It looked like a bone dragon with 3 skulls. Each of its skulls had a hole on its forehead, and its huge bone wings held countless runes. This huge body gave everyone a sense of pressure. Fluctuations were coming from it as if it were alive. That seems to be a 3-head 9-eye illusion spirit beast. So this kind of ancient divine beast actually exists? Cried out someone in shock. Impossible. That's something that exists only in myth and fable. How could it really exist? An uproar erupted. The 3-head 9-eye illusion spirit beast was something only described in fairy tales. Most people thought they were a fabricated existence that had never really existed. The fairy tale said that it was a nightmare that reaped people's lives. That frightening story was the only reason people had any idea what it was. However, now that they were seeing the skeleton, they all felt a chill. Even something from a fairy tale had been pulled out by Long Chen. His trump cards were truly frightening. I don't like causing trouble, but I'm not afraid of trouble. If you want to target me, well, since we're all climbing to the peak of the martial path, stepping over other people's shoulders to advance is normal. If I were to die to someone's hands like that, I would have no complaints. However, people have their own reverse scale, and my reverse scale is my people. Since you had the guts to harm my family, to use any means necessary, I'm sure you came prepared to be killed by me. You know I'm no saint, and repaying enmity with kindness isn't something I'm capable of doing. I have always believed in a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. Today, I will show the world that if anyone wants to kill me, they should come at me. But if they come for my people, then only one of us can exist in this world. Long Chen's gaze swept across the experts on the other side. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, and he waved his hand. The three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast suddenly raised all three of its heads and roared. Its wings rose, and the divine runes around it lit up. Multicolored lights interwove. The world felt like it had become a land of fantasy and dreams. As the multicolored lights flowed, the opposing experts began to collapse one by one. Thousands of people fell in just an instant, their souls dissipated. Twang twang. Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin and Jin Mingwei's expressions completely changed. Just now, they had felt like they had been drawn into another world, fighting countless experts. Each of those experts had been terrifying, and just as it felt like they wouldn't be able to hold on any longer, the music of a zither brought them back to reality. They felt a burst of fear. Just now, they had been drawn into an illusion. If Long Chen had launched a sneak attack during that time, they would be dead now. This three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast was absolutely terrifying. They were drawn into its illusions without being able to react at all. If it hadn't been for Ziyan, they had no idea when they would have managed to react. However, in just the blink of an eye, a lot of the experts around them had collapsed. They had been silently killed. This was the most chilling, most terrifying way to die. Ziyan's expression was grave as she continuously played her zither, unleashing waves that covered the experts around her, blocking the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's illusory arts. At this moment, the space in the distance shook. The various senior experts were crazily attacking the barrier. The appearance of the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast made them insane. Seeing their disciples collapse, they roared furiously. Regretfully, their roars were blocked by the barrier. It was unknown what they were shouting. But based on their usual practices, it was definitely something along the lines of, "If you kill my disciples, I'll kill you and your family." Long Chen ignored what was happening outside. Meng Qi was repeatedly forming hand seals to unleash the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's attack, but it was blocked by Ziyan's music. Ziyan was truly powerful. Her manifestation and her divine item resonated with each other. Other than the thousands of experts that died right at the start, no more died. The three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's power was unable to break through her music. That wasn't because the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast wasn't powerful enough to even defeat Ziyan, but simply that it was now nothing more than a corpse. Furthermore, it was unknown how many tens of thousands of years ago it had died. Most of its power had already run out. Meng Qi was using her spiritual strength to activate the remnant energy within its crystal core, allowing it to unleash its attack. Long Chen, do you want to continue? Meng Qi looked at Long Chen. This is our vengeance. No matter who it is that tries to stop us, they can't stop us. If humans block us, we'll kill humans. If gods block us, we'll kill gods. Long Chen didn't hesitate. Hearing that, Ziyan's face paled slightly, and her eyes became misty. However, she clenched her teeth and acted indifferent. She continued playing the seven-string C suppressing zither to defend. Meng Qi looked at the distant Ziyan. Saying sorry in her heart, she formed 9 different hand seals. On the 9th seal, the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's 3 heads lit up. A ray of divine light shot out of each of its eyes. They were like 9 sharp blades shooting out. Boom! The 9 rays of divine light instantly pierced Ziyan's defenses and swept through their enemies. Anyone struck by the light wasn't even able to make a sound before being turned into nothingness, forever vanishing from this world. The instant her defenses were broken, Ziyan's body shook, and blood leaked out of the corner of her mouth, dripping onto her chest. Kill! With the defenses broken, Long Chen let out a shout and charged forward. Evil Moon slashed toward Yan Weishan. Split the heavens 5. Despite having his furnace to protect himself, Yan Weishan was sent flying and hacked up blood from Long Chen's attack. Just as Long Chen was preparing to unleash a second attack, Ziyan appeared in front of him. Anger appeared in Long Chen's eyes. Double dragon destruction. Long Chen placed his saber on his back and formed a hand seal. This time, he didn't hold back at all. Lei Long and Hua Long's full power burst forth. A golden flame dragon and a 5-colored lightning dragon intertwined, unleashing all their power at Ziyan. Lei Long and Hua Long's power was sucked dry in just one attack. This was Long Chen's most ferocious attack. Ziyan's zither shone with divine light. Ripples spread, tearing through the void. Boom! Heaven and earth shook. Lightning and flames filled the sky, causing the barrier to shudder. The entire barrier dimmed rapidly because of this one attack. Ziyan was blown back. Before she could stabilize, a hand reached out from within the lightning and flames, catching her neck. Long Chen, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan let out a startled cry. In the distance, Yu Tong and the others' expressions were pale as paper. Ziyan was caught in Long Chen's hands. At this moment, only a thin line separated her life and death. Caught by Long Chen, Ziyan didn't reveal any fear. Instead, her eyes seemed calm. There seemed to be an unclear emotion deep within them. It seemed to be a kind of release. Long Chen looked at Ziyan, all kinds of emotions swirling in his heart. In the end, the two of them had still ended up fighting. The heavens truly knew how to play with people. Ziyan, back in front of the hidden dragon abode in the eastern wastelands Qing prefecture, my friend Mu Shui was captured and used as a hostage against me. You were the one who saved her. Back then, I swore that I would repay that favor. You saved my friend's life back then, so today, I'll let you off this once. From now on, neither of us owe the other anything. Any ties between us are broken. If we meet again, we will probably be enemies. At that time, whether you kill me or I kill you, neither of us have to feel any guilt. Long Chen waved his hand, sending Ziyan flying toward Yu Tong and the others. Yu Tong hastily reached out to catch her. Ziyan coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just now, Long Chen had forced his spiritual yuan into her body, shaking her meridians and causing her to temporarily lose the ability to fight. Long Chen. Yu Tong was enraged that Long Chen would be so vicious to Ziyan. She was about to shout at him when Ziyan stopped her. Yu Tong, I'm tired. Can you hold me and let me sleep? After saying that, Ziyan directly lost consciousness. Yu Tong's tears dripped down. She had grown up together with Ziyan and knew her the best. She understood the pain in Ziyan's heart. Compared to the injuries to her body, it was Long Chen's words that had cut her the most. Ziyan had passed out because she felt helpless and could only escape using this method. Kill them all, roared Long Chen, charging back at Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin and Jin Mingwei. The three of them fought all out, but due to the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's influence, their power was greatly weakened. Even with their manifestations resisting it, they felt sleepy and were unable to concentrate. They were forced into desperate straits by Long Chen. At the same time, the Dragonblood Legion charged. The experts in front of them collapsed in droves, and rivers of blood flowed. Everyone hold on. The reinforcements are nearly here, and the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's power is about to run out. The one to die in the end will still be Long Chen, shouted someone upon seeing the runes on the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast turn dark. Just as he finished saying that, the three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast's skeleton crumbled. All its energy was used up, and it could no longer be used. At this point, the experts from the various powers had been reduced to less than 50,000. As their numbers dwindled, the speed at which they died increased. However, they clenched their teeth and persevered. The barrier in the sky was weakening, looking like it might break at any moment. That let them see hope. Meng Qi, shouted Long Chen suddenly. The dream traps the soul, the nightmare extinguishes it. Hearing Long Chen's call, Meng Qi didn't hesitate. She summoned back her flying swords, and a vast spiritual ripple spread from her, covering the battlefield. Her face turned as pale as paper as she exhausted all her soul energy with this one attack. All the various experts were shocked to find their yuan spirits being stripped from their bodies. No! The Dragonblood warriors took advantage of this moment to launch their strongest attacks. They slaughtered them. Just at this moment, the barrier in the sky exploded. The experts outside the barrier finally broke through. Long Chen, you ingrate, hand over your life. Countless life star experts charged at Long Chen. All these senior experts had watched as their beloved disciples died one by one at Long Chen and his people's hands. The barrier that had appeared was extremely strange. When their attacks landed on it, a portion of their power was absorbed by the barrier and used to block their remaining power. This formation was absolutely shameless to use their own power to block their attacks. That was why the barrier had taken so long to break. It was only by continuously weakening its power that they managed to finally break through. Just as they broke the barrier, they saw Meng Qi unleash a powerful move that temporarily stripped their disciples of their Yuan spirits. Meng Qi's move was absolutely shocking. Since it was spread over such an enormous area, its power was weakened, and she was only able to strip their Yuan spirits out of their bodies for half a breath's time. However, that half a breath's time was what ended their lives. The Dragonblood Legion didn't need any direction. Their cooperation was seamless. As soon as Meng Qi unleashed her move, they unleashed their own powerful moves, slaughtering their opponents. In the end, only around 1,000 people survived. The rest were killed. Those people were people whose spiritual strength was also very monstrous. With Meng Qi's technique spread over such a wide area, they managed to pull back their Yuan spirits immediately and protect themselves. Seeing the barrier break, they were delighted and hastily fled toward their reinforcements. They furiously roared, "Long Chen, you're dead now." Evil Moon said, "Long Chen, you should run. There are too many of them and they have divine items. Your Dragonblood Legion will take large casualties." Over 100,000 life star experts charged over like a tide. Anyone would feel a chill from that sight. I've already said that I won't rely on your power to run again. That will affect my Dao heart. Long Chen shook his head. He made a gesture, causing the Dragonblood Legion to regather. Seeing the reinforcements, Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin, and Jin Mingwei all exchanged a glance. They all nodded. The three of them suddenly coughed up blood onto their divine items. That one mouthful of blood contained the majority of their essence blood. Their three divine items unleashed blinding light. Divine pressure crashed down on Long Chen. Long Chen, did you really think we only had this little ability? Today, I'll let you understand what a true trump card is. Sneered Yan Weishan. The golden furnace above him was shining with divine light. Its divine power had already locked onto Long Chen. At the same time, Hu Xiaolin's bone claw and Jin Mingwei's blood gourd were also locked onto him. The three of them were now safe thanks to these reinforcements, and so they didn't mind exhausting a huge amount of their essence blood to activate their divine items. By killing Long Chen in front of everyone, they would retrieve the face they had lost today. This battle had been extremely miserable for them. It could be said that they had already lost. As for whether or not they could reverse that loss, it would be up to this attack. There were multiple reasons why they hadn't unleashed this move before. One was because of their ulterior motives and desire to preserve their power. Another reason was because they wanted to pull in Ziyan. But the main reason was because they didn't care about the deaths of these experts. Although they were allied for this one occasion, they didn't have the slightest relationship to them. They had no reason to do their utmost to help them. The reason they were unleashing this move now was mostly because of their own reputations. If Long Chen fell to others, it wouldn't make up for their defeat, so they had to kill him themselves. Furthermore, their reinforcements had arrived, so they didn't need to worry about entering a weak state after using this move. There was no threat to their lives. Their three divine items unleashed three huge pillars of light that enveloped Long Chen. He was like a bird in a cage. They were actually holding back their most terrifying move. All the neutral camp's experts let out startled cries. They had truly hidden their power deeply. Meng Qi and the others' expressions also changed. They hadn't expected these three to be so sinister. Despite how urgent the situation had been, they had still held back their strongest trump card. As for Long Chen, he had already used up his trump cards. The only thing that comforted them was that Long Chen didn't reveal the slightest sign of panic. Instead, he seemed to look at their actions with disdain. Long Chen sneered, "You didn't even have the courage to put your life on the line. People like you are fated to never be able to compete with me. Did you really think these people could save you? Today, I'll show you what true power is." Long Chen stabbed his saber into the ground and bent his back slightly. The divine ring behind him suddenly stopped moving. Formless energy started to rise from below Long Chen. A wild gale surged around him, causing his clothes to wave wildly. His hair blew back toward the sky. A wild aura was circulating within Long Chen's body. The 5-point star in his divine ring grew brighter and brighter. Its lines also grew thicker. The ground beneath him cracked. Those cracks instantly spread throughout the battlefield. The Dragonblood Legion hastily retreated, and the distant neutral camp's experts followed. They were all silent. Only the senior experts composed of sect masters and the like were still roaring furiously as they charged over. Feng Fu's star, Awaken. The lower left corner of Long Chen's 5-point star in his divine ring lit up. A star appeared there. At the same time, his left foot began to shine. The air of primal chaos and a grand Tao revolved around him. What is that? He still had a trump card? The jaws of the neutral camp's experts dropped. Evil Moon, you laughed at me for not having the qualifications to challenge the sovereigns. Today, I'll show you my qualifications. Even I don't know how strong this move is, because it's my first time as well. Long Chen smiled. The reason why Long Chen had arrived late was because something had happened with the 9-star Hegemon body art. Before this problem, he had assumed that once he finished the 9th star transformation of the Divine Gate Star, he would be able to summon the true 5-star battle armor. However, he was shocked to find that as soon as the Divine Gate Star went through its transformation, the 5 stars immediately shut down. That had made his soul almost flee his body in terror. If he couldn't use the 5 stars, he wouldn't be able to save Cloud. He had hastily poured more Heaven and Earth Divine Spring into the Divine Gate Star, only to find that it didn't change at all. After testing what was going on, he found that when he nourished the Feng Fu star with the Heaven and Earth Divine Spring, it began to awaken. It was like it had become revitalized with life and was different from before. After the Feng Fu star, the Alioth star also slowly woke. All his stars seemed to be undergoing a special metamorphosis that required the Heaven and Earth Divine Spring. Long Chen found that he didn't have enough Heaven and Earth Divine Spring, so he hastily went to find more. However, he didn't reveal his identity at that time to avoid causing anything unexpected in the dragon slaughtering convention. He had flipped through dozens of powerful forces and snatched their Heaven and Earth Divine Springs in order to fully awaken his 5-star battle armor. Then he immediately rushed over to the Grand Han. Now, this was his first time activating the Feng Fu star like this. His power instantly surged. The feeling of being full of power was delightful, and this level of power even frightened himself. Alioth starts Awaken. Life Fate starts Awaken. Enlightenment Palace star Awaken. His left foot, right hand, and right foot all began to shine. The lower and middle corners of his 5-point star in his divine ring each had a star appear. With every star that awakened, his power soared. That power caused the sky to quiver. Divine Gate Star Awaken. Long Chen's forehead lit up. The peak corner of the 5-point star lit up as well, and the 5 stars were all shining brightly. Endless energy was flowing within it, like a lifeless cosmos that had suddenly been filled with limitless energy. Boom. A pillar of light soared into the sky. The stars shook, while Long Chen seemed like the undefeatable god of the starry sky. Everyone was shocked, and even the experts charging at him felt fear. That kind of power was just too terrifying. Yan Weishan, Xiaolin, and Jin Mingwei all felt a chill. Long Chen was no human, he was a ferocious monster. Their 3 divine items finally finished accumulating energy, and 3 streaks of light shot toward Long Chen. Long Chen looked at those 3 streaks of light coldly. He randomly swung Evil Moon. Boom. Their 3 attacks exploded. Divine light sprinkled through the air. He destroyed the attacks of 3 powerful divine items with a random stroke of his saber. Heavens, who in the world can match him? Cried out someone in shock and terror. Yan Weishan, Hu Xiaolin and Jin Mingwei coughed up blood. They flew back along with their 3 divine items. I only have 10 breaths time. Evil Moon, if you want to eat meat, hurry up, said Long Chen as he sensed at the energy rapidly being exhausted in his body. Good job, Long Chen, you've impressed me. Then let's go all out. Evil Moon cried out excitedly. Long Chen's figure vanished from his original location. When he reappeared, he was right in front of Hu Xiaolin. His saber slashed heavily onto Hu Xiaolin's giant head. Five stars revolved in Long Chen's eyes. They were the same stars as the ones behind him. The stars were burning, causing his power and speed to reach an unbelievable level. He appeared in front of Hu Xiaolin with such speed that no one could track him with their eyes. The reason Long Chen had chosen Hu Xiaolin as his target wasn't because he hated him in particular. It was just that he was very large, making him the most obvious target. Hu Xiaolin hastily blocked with his bone claw. However, he was now weakened from his previous attack. He couldn't bear Long Chen's power. When Long Chen's saber landed, the bone claw was fine, but Long Chen's force was so great that he made the bone claw smash into Hu Xiaolin's head, causing his head to explode. A large figure flew out of Hu Xiaolin's head. It was something around the size of a house, and there was a pair of black wings on it as it fled. That was Hu Xiaolin's crystal core. The Xian beasts were different from humans. Humans passed down their abilities through teaching and learning. On the other hand, the Xian beasts passed down their inheritances through their bloodlines and crystal cores. As for the Yuan spirits, the humans kept them in their mind sea, but the Xian beasts had their Yuan spirits in their crystal core. The Xian beasts might be number 1 in terms of physical power, but their souls were very weak. That was part of the heavenly Daos. If you had the strongest point, you also had to have the weakest point. As for the Xian beasts' weakest point, it was their Yuan spirits. Once Hu Xiaolin's body was destroyed, his Yuan spirit fled with his crystal core. However, Long Chen gave him no chance. Evil Moon slashed down mercilessly, instantly shattering the crystal core. Hu Xiaolin's Yuan spirit was destroyed. All the experts felt their hearts shake. A genius of the terrifying Xian beasts had just fallen. The Xian beasts were probably about to go crazy. Long Chen was truly brazen. Once Hu Xiaolin died, the white bone claw transformed into a ray of light that vanished from the battlefield. As for Long Chen, he was already moving on toward the corrupt path's Jin Mingwei. Evil Moon was raised high into the air. Jin Mingwei had long since lost his initial arrogance. He was terrified. Corrupt Master, save me. Due to losing so much essence blood, Jin Mingwei's power had sharply fallen. He couldn't receive a single blow from Long Chen. At this moment, an elder with dark blotches covering his face rapidly formed hand seals with his withered hands. The blood gourd's runes lit up. It grew and appeared in front of Jin Mingwei, blocking Long Chen. This was clearly a life star expert from the corrupt path, the real controller of the blood gourd. Boom! Long Chen's saber landed heavily on the gourd. This time, Evelmun's black runes also lit up. 2 divine powers clashed. The gourd was sent flying, while Long Chen was also forced back. If a soul transformation expert could unleash 1/100th of the divine item's power, then a life star expert could wield 10% of its power. As for this particular elder, his aura was extremely powerful. There was a trace of death chi swirling around him. He was already half a step into a higher realm, allowing him to unleash almost 30% of his divine item's power. Even with his 5 stars fully activated, Long Chen was forced back. However, the shockwaves from a clash of 2 powerful divine items blew apart Jin Mingwei's physical body. Only his Yuan spirit escaped. Long Chen, not even death can wipe away your crimes. Today, you must be executed to remove a scourge from the eastern Xian region. The Flame Divine Palace's master appeared, flying toward Long Chen. The golden furnace rapidly grew and smashed at Long Chen. You're the parasite of the continent. I should be the one removing you. Long Chen slashed Evil Moon at the golden furnace. Long Chen was once more knocked back, but the palace master also shook, almost coughing up blood. However, He forcibly swallowed it back down to maintain his dignity. "Long Chen, you goddamn bastard, hand over my son's life," shouted an expert from the ancient family alliance. Long Chen recognized him as the patriarch of the Xia family. Long Chen sneered and slashed his saber. The Xia family's patriarch's divine item exploded. Without the slightest resistance, he exploded into blood mist. Evil Moon was now unleashing its divine power, and quasi-divine items were not able to stop it. Adding on Long Chen's current power with the 5-star battle armor, his power surpassed everyone's expectations. Even with a divine item, the Xia family patriarch was slain in one move. The palace master and the corrupt path's elder were both shocked. Long Chen was much more terrifying than they had ever imagined. They had to kill him with their full power. Even with 2 powerful divine items, they were unable to defeat him. "Those with divine items, unleash long-range attacks," shouted Yan Weishan while hiding in the crowd. He couldn't help being enraged and jealous upon seeing Long Chen still able to remain undefeated against these 2 powerful experts. Over 10 experts attacked at the same time. Divine light shot toward Long Chen, enveloping him. Long Chen crazily slashed Evil Moon out, forcing back the golden furnace and blood gourd. Each collision caused cracks to appear on his body, but they were instantly healed by the primal chaos bead. Each collision was a clash of divine power. His own power wasn't even needed. He just needed to make sure his body didn't break down. "Long Chen, this is no good. That furnace is too powerful, and my power is limited. Think of some way of conning the gourd. That gourd will be very useful to me," said Evil Moon. Long Chen had said that his 5-star battle armor could only be maintained for at most 10 breaths time. Now, it had already been 5 breaths. In a bit, all his power would be exhausted by the 5-star battle armor. "Fuck, these bastards don't know when to stop. There are so many of them. What am I supposed to do?" raged Long Chen. As he focused on blocking the attacks of the 2 powerful divine items, he also had to block the sneak attacks of the other experts. He was already at his limit. "Guoran, help me handle that damn old bearded bastard," shouted Long Chen. He forced back the blood gourd and then charged into the crowd, ignoring the Flame Divine Palace's master. These experts were constantly disturbing him like flies. Finally, some work. "Brothers, execute the plan," shouted Guoran. Standing at the front of the Dragonblood Legion, Gu Yang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan all pressed their hands on Guoran's back. Following that, each of the Dragonblood warriors pressed their hands on the warrior in front of them. The power of over 12,000 warriors gathered. Their armor began to shine, and their energy flowed toward Guoran. Guoran crossed his sabers. He pointed them at the palace master who was about to send the golden furnace at Long Chen. Dragonblood cross/slash. All the Dragonblood Legion's armor bloomed with light. A huge cross shot out of Guoran's sabers, whistling through the air. Back when Guoran had forged their sets of armor, he had imagined a peerless attack made by concentrating everyone's power. After countless tests and going through it with Long Chen, he had finally succeeded. This was their first time unleashing it in front of others. The palace master who was just about to chase after Long Chen suddenly felt a sensation of mortal danger fill him. He shivered. When he saw that huge, deadly cross shooting toward him, he jumped in fright. That attack was so terrifying that he could feel his death coming. He suddenly spat a mouthful of blood onto the golden furnace, and it grew to the size of a mountain. Boom! The huge cross slammed into the golden furnace, and a huge explosion that caused the world to lose all sound occurred. The golden furnace was sent flying, while the palace master shook violently and coughed up blood, flying into the distance along with the golden furnace. All the experts present were shocked. They had never imagined that the Dragonblood Legion would possess such a move. Fortunately, the golden furnace that the palace master possessed was no ordinary divine item. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for him to escape his death. The Dragonblood warriors took a deep breath. All their faces were a bit pale. That one attack had sucked away the majority of their energy. This one attack contained the energy of over 12,000 Dragonblood warriors. Although it didn't contain any divine power, it had reached the strength of divine power. The only regretful thing was that the golden furnace was too powerful. The palace master only suffered a slight injury. However, Long Chen was now running free amongst the crowd. Huge saber mages were flying through the air. Split the heavens 5. It was unknown how many Life Star experts were slain by just this one attack. Even 6 divine items were shattered. Long Chen raised his saber again, preparing to unleash another attack, but just at that moment, a huge blood gourd stealthily approached him from behind. At some unknown point, its lid had popped open. Its opening was like a gaping maw, and it formed a wild whirlpool. Long Chen turned back to look. Blood devours the heavens. The corrupt expert sneered, and he slammed a rune, which he had drawn with blood in his hand, onto the gourd. Long Chen didn't resist. He was directly swallowed into the blood furnace. Damn, Long Chen, you're quite the badass. How did you know he would suck you in? Evil Moon was filled with praise toward Long Chen. Long Chen had actually succeeded in getting into the gourd. Don't waste words. I'm almost at my limit, said Long Chen, panting. He was no god. How was he supposed to know that the gourd had its own space that could suck people inside? This was entirely a coincidence. Long Chen was like a blind cat who had found a dead mouse. His thought had merely been to eliminate the troublesome fellows and see if he could find an opportunity, but the corrupt elder had directly activated his divine item's special space to suck Long Chen in while his back was turned to him. Just as Long Chen was about to resist the suction, Evil Moon had let out a pleasantly surprised cry. Acting like he couldn't react, he had allowed himself to be sucked in. In truth, his acting was far too exaggerated, but the corrupt elder didn't suspect anything. Perhaps he wasn't afraid of Long Chen doing anything. Once Long Chen was sucked in, the gourd's outer runes transformed into frightening ghouls that entered it as well. Seeing Long Chen being sucked in, everyone jumped in shock. That was a terrifying divine item. Once someone was sucked in, they would probably never come out again. Although divine items couldn't refine other divine items, meaning the gourd probably wouldn't be able to do anything to Evil Moon, Long Chen would probably be instantly killed. Corrupt Master, refine Long Chen's essence blood. I want to drink it all, or I won't be able to expel my hatred, shouted Jin Mingwei. Right now, his physical body had been destroyed, causing his hatred for Long Chen to grow even greater. Although he could find another body, it was very difficult to find a suitable one. Even if he did find a powerful body, once they merged, there would definitely be some kind of resistance. That would cause his talent to drop in the future and weaken him. This was even worse than killing him. Seeing Long Chen being sucked into the blood gourd, Jin Mingwei shouted furiously, wanting him dead this instant. There's no need for that. I'll destroy his Yuan spirit and leave his physical body for you. The corrupt elder smiled sinisterly. Hearing that, Jin Mingwei's rage instantly transformed into delight. Long Chen's physical body was absolutely terrifying. It was even stronger than the Xian beasts whose Xiaolin's body. If he obtained Long Chen's body, then combined with some secret arts, his combat power would actually increase. What do we do? Guoran and the others' expressions changed. Long Chen had been sucked into that terrifying gourd, and they had no idea what to do. Their previous attack had sucked up the majority of their energy, and they couldn't unleash it again. Blood erases the soul. 10,000 ghosts slaughter the spirit. The corrupt elder formed hand seals, causing the gourd to spin in the air, its divine light shining. Frightening shrieks came from within the gourd, giving other people's chills. Within the gourd's space, it was a blood-colored world. Countless blood monstrosities were charging at him. Long Chen was surrounded by golden flames that formed a perfect defense around him. Anything that touched the golden flames would immediately let out a miserable shriek and flee, their whole body ignited. Once ignited, some kind of special energy would extinguish the flames on their bodies, and they would charge at Long Chen once more. Long Chen ignored them. As he maintained his flame shield, he roved around this space. I found it. It's up ahead. Hey, you're going the wrong direction, shouted Evil Moon. You fool, do you think others are as stupid as you? If we go there directly, they'd realize something was off. We have to make them feel like we're running around randomly in panic. A sneak attack isn't as effective if they're prepared, said Long Chen. Not bad. It really is you humans that are the craftiest. Even upon being cursed by Long Chen, Evil Moon wasn't angered. Instead, it praised him. Long Chen ignored Evil Moon. The flame barrier around him shrank with each passing moment. That was because the corrupt elder was controlling more and more of the blood monstrosities, and they were growing stronger. Long Chen had to reduce the range of his barrier. He acted like he couldn't hold on much longer. He dashed left and right, but in the end, he reached the place that Evil Moon had pointed out. This space was its own minor world. It was a wasteland. As for the place that Evil Moon had pointed out, it was merely a small bump in the wasteland. On this uneven ground, it appeared completely ordinary. Long Chen let out a sudden explosive cry and stabbed Evil Moon into the ground. This space instantly became chaotic. The item spirit had finally sensed something. Regretfully, it was too late. The ground exploded, revealing a huge altar. Evil Moon was stabbed right into an image at the center of the altar. This image was of a ferocious beast chained by countless divine runes. This was the Blood Gourd's item spirit. This image was now shaking violently, as if it was resisting. However, the runic chains bound it, making it so it couldn't resist. The two dragon images on Evil Moon lit up, and its rumbling rang out like the roar of a furious dragon. Up in the sky, countless blood-colored runic chains exploded. The image slowly faded. Long Chen could clearly sense a new immense power inside Evil Moon. That was satisfying. Evil Moon shouted in joy. It had instantly annihilated the item spirit and sucked away all of its divine energy. This blood gourd was a fierce killing tool that had slaughtered countless people. This kind of energy was greatly beneficial to Evil Moon. In the outside world, the corrupt elder suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. This sudden change shocked everyone. In the distance, the Flame Divine Palace's master flew back with the golden furnace. He was just about to say not to kill Long Chen, because Long Chen's secrets were something Pill Valley longed to learn. However, before he could speak, the corrupt elder suffered a heavy injury. Even more shocking was the blood gourd. Its bright runes were rapidly dimming. Its aura was also withering away. What's going on? Everyone stared at the blood gourd in confusion. Boom. Suddenly, the bottom of the blood gourd exploded. A figure shot out of the newly formed hole, and a 5-colored divine ring appeared once more. It's Long Chen. Startled cries rang out, along with cheers from the Dragonblood Legion. However, their cries had just started when Long Chen attacked. I told you, there's no essence blood. Do you want my piss instead? A huge saber image struck the dumbfounded Yuan spirit of Jin Mingwei. Jin Mingwei's soul was annihilated. Following Xiaolin, another peak heavenly genius was slain. He's capable of killing Empyreans even in this kind of situation. He really is heaven-defying. Back when the dragon slaughtering convention was announced, everyone had thought that this was simply an execution. If Long Chen came, he would definitely die. Who would have thought? This dragon slaughtering convention, instead of slaughtering a dragon, became a convention where the dragons slaughtered the others. The sight of Long Chen killing Jin Mingwei was especially amazing. The scattered fragments of his Yuan spirit illuminated him along with his divine ring. A generation's genius had died, setting off Long Chen's unrivaled power. This scene was something these people would never be able to forget. Jin Mingwei was truly a fool. Thinking that Long Chen was definitely dead, he had stood at the front of the crowd. That was the easiest place for Long Chen to kill him. If Long Chen hadn't killed him, it would be like Long Chen was letting him down. After killing Jin Mingwei, Long Chen charged at the other experts, preparing to kill a few more of them before the 5-star battle armor disappeared. However, halfway there, his divine ring vanished along with the 5-point star. His eyes then returned to normal, and a wave of exhaustion came over him. What? It's only been 9 breaths. It was shorter than I estimated. Long Chen instantly became dumbfounded. He was now right in front of these people. Fortunately, these experts were already terrified of him. They scattered. If even the blood gourd wasn't able to handle him, then their quasi-divine items were nothing. However, they had only fled for a bit before they realized something was wrong. Long Chen's divine ring had vanished, and his aura had plummeted. His secret arts vanished. "Kill him. Get vengeance for our children," shouted a life star expert from the ancient races. He was the first to attack. Following that person, the others also roared and attacked. Long Chen sneered and raised Evil Moon. "Evil Moon, it's about time for you to get to work," said Long Chen. Having eaten so much, it was time for it to show its power. "I'm really sorry, Long Chen. I might have eaten a bit too much. Most of my power is being used to suppress the energy I just consumed. I can't help you." Evil Moon's voice was very quiet. It truly did seem sorry. "What the fuck? You really are a con man." Long Chen's face immediately turned green. These experts were now right in front of him. There was no time for him to run. Boom. The ground exploded and a huge willow appeared. Countless branches rained down on those experts like sharp blades. The willow branches were like a torrent of swords as they rained down from the sky. Some experts didn't react fast enough and were pierced by them. Those seemingly tender branches flowed with divine light, and not even ancestral items could block them. It was unknown how many experts were slain in that instant. The undying willow had finally attacked. Before Long Chen had arrived, it had been the one to block the attacks of the experts, protecting the Dragonblood Legion. Despite being named Undying, blocking the attacks of 3 powerful divine items had exhausted a great deal of its energy. After Long Chen had arrived, it hadn't interfered again. Chu Yao had told it to quickly recover its energy. The Undying Willow's recovery speed was monstrous, and during the time Long Chen had been fighting, it had almost recovered to its peak state. Now that Long Chen was out of energy, Chu Yao immediately summoned it. The Undying Willow launched its most ferocious killing move. Long Chen felt a branch wrap around his chest, and he was pulled over to under the giant willow's crown. There was a woman there who stared coldly at Long Chen. She was the Undying Willow. She had been named Lu Ruyan by Chu Yao. Lu Ruyan possessed a beautiful, transcendent air. However, whenever she saw Long Chen, there would be hostility in her eyes. "Thank you." Long Chen sighed with relief. Evil Moon had almost conned him to death. If it hadn't been for Lu Ruyan, he might have died there. "I was just helping Sister Chu Yao," sniffed Lu Ruyan coldly, refusing to accept his thanks. Long Chen smiled and didn't reply. Back then, he had gone all out to seal Lu Ruyan. It seemed she had decided to forever remember that enmity. With her petty nature, she might never look at him nicely. Boom. The branches exploded as a huge furnace shot through them. The Flame Divine Palace's master was attacking. Lu Ruyan's expression changed, and she formed a hand seal. Countless branches gathered together in front of her, but she was still unable to stop the golden furnace. The golden furnace tumbled through her branches, smashing them to pieces. Perhaps only Lu Ruyan with her body of the Undying Willow could block a divine item, but even so, it exhausted far too much energy. "That's about enough." Long Chen shook his head and sighed. He sent a spiritual message to Bao Buping, who took out a formation disc. He crushed it. Space shook, and 8 figures appeared in the sky. The one at the front was an imposing elder with a pitch-black wooden staff. It was the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect's current master. Behind him were the 7 bosses of the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect. As soon as they saw the situation, they jumped in shock. "What's going on here?" Boss Bao was shocked. Remnant divine energy still hung in the air, and the ground was in ruins and soaked with blood. Scattered bits of weapons and armor were everywhere. This was an apocalyptic scene. Before the dragon slaughtering convention had started, Long Chen had reached out to the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect through Zheng Wenlong. If he couldn't handle it, then he would need the old man to come clean up after him. The old man instantly agreed and made his preparations along with the 7 bosses. For this occasion, Long Chen had given a formation disc to Bao Buping. If he encountered a life and death crisis or Long Chen needed help, he could crush it, and they would appear. This kind of formation disk was a remnant of the ancient era. The method to create them had long since been lost in the flow of time. This was also the only such formation disk that the heaven-splitting battle sect possessed. It was incomparably precious, and now it had been used up. The old man and the others had been waiting patiently at the heaven-splitting battle sect summoning formation when they were suddenly summoned. They were shocked by what they saw. Originally, they had thought that this would be nothing more than a battle between soul transformation brats. How many waves could they possibly make? However, the scene in front of them was a far cry from what they had expected. Seeing the huge willow fighting the golden furnace, even the old man was shocked. The day-night furnace. Others might not recognize it, but the old man saw it for what it was. This furnace was the day-night furnace, an incomparably precious treasure of Pill Valley. It was supposedly something that Pill Valley's god, fallen day-night, had bestowed upon them. It was on the same level as the Brahma divine diagram. The void rumbled as the undying willow's branches collected into layers of defenses but was still unable to stop the day-night furnace's attack. In front of the day-night furnace, the undying willow was only able to hold it off. She couldn't retaliate. Just as she was about to reach her limit, a black light shot out. A black staff struck the tumbling day-night furnace, causing it to fly back. The old man appeared in front of Long Chen, mighty and bold. The black staff was held in his hand. Long Chen's reinforcements had finally come. Wu Guangyun, is your heaven-splitting battle sect planning on becoming enemies with everyone beneath the heavens? Roared the palace master as he caught the day-night furnace. For him to be able to call out the old man's name, the two of them were most likely from the same generation. His expression was cold and hostile. Are you saying Pill Valley represents all that is beneath the heavens? If that's the case, then yes, we can be enemies, said the old man indifferently. He then turned back at Long Chen and smiled. Brat, I'm liking you more and more. If those cowards Booping and Chong Hao had 1/10 of your ability to cause trouble, I could die happy. Bao Booping and Chong Hao both raged. The old man didn't give them the slightest face. Who would belittle their own children in front of outsiders? The old man's arrival shocked everyone. Many people didn't know who he was at first, but once the palace master spoke, they learned his identity. In truth, I wanted to settle this fairly. They said that this was some dragon slaughtering convention, the playing field of the junior generation. But then a bunch of shameless old ghosts crawled out of the woodwork, ghosts so virtuous that they had the face to attack juniors, even using divine items. There was no way around it. Their shamelessness was absolutely frightening. I couldn't handle it. But you, old man, are definitely able to handle it with your divine power, said Long Chen with a mischievous laugh. Both the Xin Tian Dao sect and the heaven-splitting battle sect were Long Chen's home. They viewed him as their own child, so he could talk as he pleased. Long Chen knew that if he hadn't alerted the heaven-splitting battle sect about this, the old man would definitely become infuriated. He would carry his staff and start attacking, but the one he would be attacking would be Long Chen. The very first time he had gone to the heaven-splitting battle sect, the old man and the bosses had warned him that he had to treat them as family. If he kept worrying about implicating the heaven-splitting battle sect, the heaven-splitting battle sect would not view him as their disciple. The heaven-splitting battle sect was very direct. Their relationships were also very direct, but they were also sensitive in their own way. Being afraid to implicate them was an insult to them. They couldn't accept such a thing. Today, even if Long Chen caused the heavens to collapse and needed the old man to clean up after him, the old man wouldn't get angry. Instead, he would feel a kind of pride. This was one of the aspects of the heaven-splitting battle sect that was incomprehensible to others. Long Chen's words were a giant slap in the face of these senior experts. After all, in order to draw Long Chen over, the various powers playing host to the dragon slaughtering convention had sworn that Life Star experts would definitely not interfere. It was all to provoke Long Chen's competitive spirit and draw him into a trap. However, as Long Chen's power revealed itself, more and more experts were killed, and the ones that hadn't been qualified to participate in the fight had rapidly spread the news. Due to the distance, these senior experts were not clear on what exactly was happening. They only received a vague story from their people. However, they still felt uneasy. Then, while they were waiting for the good news, they received news of major deaths amongst their people, and they charged over. The moment they managed to break through the barrier, they saw their disciples slaughtered until practically none remained. So how could they possibly care about some promise? They had immediately attacked Long Chen. Now that he brought it up, they were enraged but had no way to retort. The neutral camp's experts blessed their luck that they had chosen to remain neutral. The majority of them were rather conservative and wouldn't choose a side before things were clear. Many experts they were familiar with had ended up baited by Pill Valley's powers or wanting to suck up to Pill Valley, resulting in them standing on that side. That one choice had been the difference between life and death. Wu Guangyuan, Long Chen colluded with the spirit world's creatures to harm his own people and betrayed the human race. He is an enemy of the entire martial heaven continent. For you to protect him is to become enemies with the entire world. Think carefully, warned the palace master. Fuck off. Don't accuse my child of such a thing. The entire continent knows what kind of people the heaven-splitting battle sect holds. So if you want to fight, I'll accompany you. Don't make up useless excuses. The heaven-splitting battle sect has always spoken with its fists. The old man pointed his black staff at the palace master. There's no reasoning with you. Since your heaven-splitting battle sect wants to go against my Pill Valley, you can disappear from this world just like the Shen Dao sect. Raged the palace master, slamming his hand on the day-night furnace. Old bastard, you finally admitted that the Shen Dao sect's destruction was caused by your Pill Valley, interjected Long Chen suddenly. The palace master stiffened, his expression changing. Just now, he had slipped up in his rage. The Shen Dao sect's destruction was the result of the fight between the righteous and corrupt paths. It has nothing to do with Pill Valley. Don't accuse others randomly. He might have slipped up, but he hadn't directly admitted to anything. As long as he said he simply misspoke, no one could do anything. Long Chen, don't waste words with them. The heaven-splitting battle sect doesn't bother with that. Our specialty is in cutting people down, said the old man. A bright saber suddenly appeared in his hand. When that saber appeared, everyone sucked in a cold gasp of air. The heaven-splitting blade. That saber had numerous lines of divine runes on it. As the old man slashed it down, over half those divine runes lit up. Split the heavens 7. A huge saber image soared into the sky, shaking the cosmos. The river of stars in the sky was cut and seemed to crash down with the saber image. Long Chen's heart pounded as he watched this saber image fall. He sensed a similar will to the 9-star hegemon body art within that blade. It was also ferocious, a domineering will that wished to tear through the heavens. Boom! The old man's saber landed squarely on the palace master's day-night cauldron. A blinding light exploded along with divine energy. Fortunately, the two of them collided up in the air, and everyone else immediately fled. If they were struck by those divine energy shockwaves, they would have immediately died. The day-night furnace was blown back, and the palace master coughed up 3 mouthfuls of blood. With disbelief, he cried, "You've taken the next step and reached half-step Netherpassage?" All the Life Star experts' hearts shook. They looked at the old man in shock. Netherpassage. It was the realm after the Life Star realm. It was the most terrifying realm within the cultivation world. The reason it was terrifying was because it required one to comprehend the profundities of life and death, which allowed them to open the gate to the netherworld. To reach the necessary level of comprehension was incredibly difficult. It was like a bottomless chasm in front of all peak Life Star experts. It was something they could not cross. For soul transformation experts, there was normally a 30% chance that they could reach the Life Star realm if given enough time and resources. After reaching the Xiantian realm, going from soul transformation to Life Star was actually the step with the highest chances of advancing. It was much easier than advancing to Sea Expansion, Foundation Forging, or Jade Core. The difficulty in reaching the Life Star realm lay in obtaining enough resources and having patience. The Life Star realm required condensing the Life Star with the Yuan spirit as a foundation. That was what made it require so much time. You had to cultivate the Yuan spirit, and the stronger it grew, the greater your chances of success. However, because people's talent and resources were limited, many people who managed to reach soul transformation before the age of 50 would need to stay at the soul transformation realm for centuries or even longer in order to accumulate the required energy to advance. There was only one chance to advance to the life star realm. If a soul transformation expert failed to make the advancement, they would never be able to break through naturally again. As a result, there were many soul transformation experts who either didn't dare to make the advancement or failed their advancement due to impatience. On the other hand, the Netherpassage realm was different. What was tested wasn't one's resources or talent. What was important was their comprehension of the heavenly Taos. Comprehending the profundities of life and death sounded simple. A Netherpassage expert could simply transmit their comprehension to their descendants, couldn't they? Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. No Netherpassage expert would pass on their comprehension to their descendants. If they did that, they would lose those descendants. The reason was that in the Netherpassage realm, each person's comprehension of life and death would be different. The cultivation world had such a saying: there were as many Taos as there were cultivators. Each person's Tao was unique. Each person cultivated differently. Each person's personality was different. Each person went through different experiences. This resulted in different understandings of the heavenly Taos. In the end, each person's view of life and death was also different. That was why there was no way to rely on external power to charge into the Netherpassage realm. You could only rely on yourself. You had to find that spark of enlightenment, and that wasn't something that could be forced. It was unknown just how many amazing geniuses had had their paths severed by the merciless wall which was the Netherpassage realm. To comprehend the mysteries of life and death was far too difficult. This place had gathered over 100,000 life star experts. Of course, after Long Chen and Lu Rian's attacks, they had been cut down to under 100,000. However, despite there being around 10,000 of them that had reached the late Life Star realm, hardly any of them had reached the peak of the Life Star realm like the Palace Master or the Corrupt Elder. They numbered in the dozens. Each of those people was a monster that had lived for who knew how many years. They had already grown numb to their own age. Each day that passed was another day of their longevity gone. They had lost hope of ever advancing to Netherpassage. Less than 1 in 10,000 Life Star experts would advance to Netherpassage. It was a completely monstrous proportion. As for the old man, he had yet to truly reach Netherpassage. He had only taken the first step, which was to achieve his own understanding of life and death. To truly advance, there was another requirement. This requirement was even more monstrous. He had to die once. Only by dying and being reborn could one enter Netherpassage. If you died and weren't reborn, then you would truly be dead. The chances of dying on this step were very high. As for the details regarding this, only Netherpassage experts knew them, and they were secrets that were not transmitted. So in the outside world, the Netherpassage realm was an unattainable dream. However, in that attack just now, there had not just been a will to cut through the heavens, but also an element of life and death. Such an element was something only a few experts who had long since reached the peak of Life Star could sense. That was why the Palace Master was absolutely shocked. To have taken that step, although the old man was just half-step Netherpassage, his height had already far surpassed the Palace Master's. Even though he had the day-night furnace, the heaven-splitting blade was also an extremely powerful existence. With the old man and his half-step Netherpassage cultivation base in control of it, there was no way for the Palace Master to defeat it. It's a good thing too. Then can we put this farce to an end? The old man smiled slightly as he looked at the heaven-splitting blade. The only reason why he had managed to reach this level of comprehension into life and death was because of Long Chen. If Long Chen hadn't given him the High Priest's wine, he might have been stuck at the peak of the Life Star realm for the rest of his life. To be safe, the old man had even brought the sect's core divine item, the heaven-splitting blade. It was also to intimidate everyone. Originally, the heaven-splitting blade could not have been used like this. It was the only thing maintaining the sect's karmic luck, and it was connected to their divine pool. Without it, their divine pool would wither. Fortunately, Long Chen had managed to bring back the 9 forms of Split the Heavens from Devil Spirit Mountain. With the complete form of Split the Heavens, the divine spring was revived and was accumulating more energy. It was now possible to use the heaven-splitting blade to fight without causing the sect's destruction. However, it was only once they arrived that the old man realized he really had been right to bring it. If he hadn't brought the heaven-splitting blade, then even though he had reached half-step Netherpassage, he wouldn't have any advantage against the day-night furnace. The palace master's expression grew extremely ugly. He had never expected a half-step Netherpassage expert to arrive. The old man's spiritual yuan and the power of his yuan spirit had both far surpassed his. Although he had the day-night furnace, due to his cultivation base, he couldn't bring out its full power. Could it be that this battle was about to end just like this? Pill Valley had made such a giant move, drawing over all the Eastern Xin region's forces. If they had to leave just like this, what about their dignity, their reputation? How would they explain themselves to the sects that had lost all their disciples? This dragon-slaughtering convention had been held with tens of thousands of disciples standing on Pill Valley's side. Now less than 1,000 of them remained. As for Life Star experts, tens of thousands of them had been killed. This was the most calamitous internal battle in all the Eastern Xian region's history. If such a terrifying battle ended in their defeat, Pill Valley and those sects would become this world's laughingstocks. Thinking of this, the palace master's expression sank. He clenched his teeth and crushed a jade tablet. Space shook, and a figure condensed in the air. When that figure appeared, the palace master and all of Pill Valley's experts bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Valley Master." That person in the air looked to be in his 30s. He had shoulder-length hair, and his facial features were clear enough to show a dignified face that did not lose out in handsomeness. Just by standing there, an air of immortal qi and primal chaos circulated around him. He was like a god, someone that people didn't dare to look at. He was Pill Valley's master, Xiaolin. Xiaolin's expression was dark. In fact, people could even sense killing intent. "Didn't I tell you not to disturb me unless Pill Valley was about to be destroyed?" shouted Xiaolin. The palace master quivered in fear. In all his years in Pill Valley, this was his first time seeing Xiaolin so furious. It seemed he had disturbed Xiaolin in the middle of a critical juncture of his seclusion. The palace master didn't even dare to speak, causing Xiaolin's fury to rise even higher. He had already reached a crucial moment, and this disturbance ruined months of his work. He even had an urge to kill the palace master. However, when he looked around, his expression softened. When he saw the old man holding the heaven-splitting blade, he seemed to understand. The heaven-splitting battle sect's heaven-splitting blade is actually being used? And you've advanced to half-step Netherpassage? It seems your heaven-splitting battle sect is starting to revive. But whether or not you're reviving, you shouldn't be so arrogant as to become enemies with the world. If you don't give me a reason, don't blame me for being merciless and exterminating your heaven-splitting battle sect. Xiaolin stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring coldly at the old man and the others. Although they couldn't sense his aura, everyone felt like their lives were in his hands, as if he could annihilate them with just a thought. That was a kind of power that caused despair. The old man snorted and was about to return when Long Chen flew over. Standing beside the old man, he sneered, "Valley Master, where did your Pill Valley learn to act like upholders of justice and the saviors of the world? Becoming enemies with the world? Can your Pill Valley represent the world? Are you saying that you, the Valley Master, can control everything that happens in the world?" Xiaolin did not express any anger at Long Chen's mocking. He indifferently shook his head. The world is not one person's. It can be thought of as the will of the people as well as the will of the heavens. No matter how high a person's cultivation base is, going against either one of those signifies death, while you, Long Chen, have gone against both. Everyone in the world has a duty to make sure you are killed as soon as possible. In order to remove evil from this world, even if we have to use a few unsightly methods, as long as the goal is for the world's continuation, even if we have to bear the name of sinners, so what? How hypocritical! Before, I thought you had some dignity, but now I find you're a hypocrite just like the rest. People like you are the most sickening, sneered Long Chen. These words caused all the experts to quiver. Even for some of the old monsters, this was their first time ever seeing someone who dared to curse Pill Valley's master right in the face. Long Chen's guts were truly big. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.